Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Konoha lost Naruto forever, and Hinata, Tenten and Sakura were forced to live with the consequences? Episode 3. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, years after Naruto's disappearance, the consequences of losing him are becoming impossible for Konoha to ignore, and the people who cared about him the most are still struggling with the void he left behind. Now, let's start. Infinite in mystery is the gift of the goddess. We seek it thus, and take to the sky. Ripples form on the water's surface. The wandering soul knows no rest. Loveless, Act 1, an elderly voice commented. Naruto smirked as he put the book away before looking at the man sitting across from him. So you remember? Naruto replied. Of course I goddamn know, I knew the guy who wrote the book. But what's got me annoyed is that you didn't bring Kiko-chan with you. The elderly voice said in aggravation while Naruto poured him a large cup of sake. It's not very often that I get to see my great-great-granddaughter, you know. Naruto was currently sitting on a green rug cross-legged, with a round wooden table that had an assortment of cups and plates between him and Sadahiko. Said man was also sitting cross-legged and wore a simple dark blue haori over his body that he wore like a cape and black male kimono under it held by a white belt. His face had a light tan to it along with his long light red spiky hair with most of it tied into a ponytail reaching his waist and a mustache and beard. The man had dark purple eyes and not so many wrinkles as one would expect from someone of his age. A scar went over his right eye and reached his forehead that seemed to bend slightly towards his ears. Going across it in the opposite direction was another scar, one that reached his hair. His arms that stuck out of the kimono's sleeves, looked incredibly fit and muscular, yet lean, instead of being skinny and wrinkly. Hey, don't get that tone with me, Hijiji. You said you had something important to tell me and I didn't want to bring Kiko-chan here because she'll get all bored and cranky. Naruto snapped back at his great-grandfather while pouring himself a cup of sake. The two had been trading insults for the past 15 minutes while drinking sake. However, one could tell that neither felt offended by one another, as it was merely just friendly jabs between relatives. Still, it would be nice if you did bring her, you know. I hadn't seen her since she was barely a month old. If you're worried that I reject her because of the circumstances of her birth, then you're an idiot, Naruto. Sadahiko said jokingly but with kindness in his words. I know that. It's just with Konoha and Akatsuki after mine and fur balls right now, I would rather have her somewhere safe and where we can move quickly just in case. Naruto replied. Currently, said Fox was taking a nap inside Naruto's mindscape and so was oblivious to the conversation between the two Uzumakis. That's actually part of the reason why I wanted to meet with you in person. Sadahiko said, suddenly becoming serious. I'm positive that this Akatsuki's goal is to gather the Biju and revive the Jubi, for which I fear will be used to create the infinite Tsukuyomi. The same technique the Hagoromo Otsutsuki's mother, Kagaya Otsutsuki, used 1,000 years ago. Sadahiko said. Naruto blinked and looked a bit worried. Are you sure? I mean, you told me the stories about it and while I don't doubt them, you can't possibly believe that. I do, Sadahiko said, interrupting Naruto. It's the only logical conclusion there is in this case. Furthermore, it's something that a person using Madara's name would do if I knew my former student. So you don't believe that this masked bastard I saw in my parents' memories is Madara? Naruto asked. From hearing how he was able to somehow make himself intangible, I do not believe that the person who released Kurama Dono 19 years ago is Madara. But I do believe that he is a subordinate of his. Sadahiko answered. Naruto looked confused. Well, pushing the part about him being Madara's subordinate aside, how does his ability to be intangible proves he's a phony? Naruto asked. Sadahiko sighed. As I told you before, the Mangekyo Sharingan as well as the Eternal version offers the wielder 3 new powers, Tsukuyomi, Amaterasu and Susanoo. However, a fourth ability can be granted to each eye individually, only that certain eye can do. One such example is that unique genjutsu the Uchiha called Shisui Uchiha could use. But there is another option too. One of the three techniques could be increased, becoming greater than the other two. Sadahiko said. Greater than the other two? As in more flexible? Naruto asked. That's one way to put it. Sadahiko replied. Madara's eyes gave him a powerful Susanoo. And though few Uchiha can use that technique, I do know for a fact that Madara's was far greater than the others and had a lot more styles to it too. The technique that this masked man can use sounds like a space-time ninjutsu focused around the Mangekyo Sharingan. The eye's fourth ability didn't have the consequences of blindness unless it was an augmentation of the first three techniques. However, they do come with their own unique side effects like one-time use. Also, I know Madara very well. A technique that is very sneaky is not his style. Sadahiko finished. Well, I guess that covers up the whole, him not being Madara or not, debate. Naruto said after hearing Sadahiko's explanation. But what makes you think that he's a subordinate of the real Madara? Unlike you, he doesn't have an advanced long life. Just call it a hunch, which just shows how awesome I am. Sadahiko said with a cheeky grin on his face. Right, Naruto replied with a sweat drop on the back of his head. Anyway, what was the other thing you wanted to talk to me about? At that, Sadahiko became serious again. I've noticed recently that Hachiro's seal has been weakening the past few months. The elder Uzumaki said grimly. What? Naruto asked in shock. How? The seal is in the very center of the island, under your protection. Are you saying that someone managed to sneak in and weaken it? The young Uzumaki asked worriedly. No, no one has managed to get on the island without me knowing it, especially towards the center. Sadahiko said to Naruto. I fear this may be the work of Hachiro himself. Even though his soul is sealed in it, doesn't mean he's completely powerless. The seal is only weak enough so that if someone on the outside damaged it, Hachiro's soul could escape and take on a new form. But he can't do anything inside it, except watch what was happening. I made sure of that. Sadahiko explained. I still find it incredible that Hachiro was able to create a technique that allowed him to split his soul from his body and use natural energy to create a new one. Naruto said. There is much that the Kishin clan were capable of. They were all linked to the planet's ley lines, and thus could absorb and use natural energy in any way they saw fit. Hachiro, being a member of the main branch, was exceptionally powerful in that regard, to the point he could do almost anything. He could even manipulate natural energy without having to absorb it, allowing him to control the elemental energies. Though, I would never have imagined that he could manipulate his own soul. I suspect it may be the work of some ancient technique of the Kishin clan. Sadahiko let out a sigh. If I had killed him earlier, he would have been just plain dead. Instead, I had to seal both his soul and body, until I could discover a way to stop him. But for now, he's locked up. You think other members of the Kishin clan are behind it? I mean, even though they were wiped out like a century ago. Naruto said. No, I don't think so. Sadahiko replied. We did a damn good job of making sure that there weren't any survivors. However, I have heard that a group of them had split off long before the genocide and formed a new clan. From what I learned, they still possess the ability to absorb natural energy, but they can only transform parts or their entire body, calling it sage transformation or something. I'm not really sure if they're still around or not, since I've been more focused on helping our clan. Sadahiko said. By the way, how are Hinoka-chan and the others doing? They're doing fine from last I heard. She's just finished getting most of the harbors on Uzu no Kuni running, and another batch of our kin arrived 3 months ago, several of them elders apparently around Hiruzen's age. Naruto commented as he took a sip of sake. You should think about visiting them. I'm sure they would be delighted to meet the legendary Sadahiko Uzumaki. No, I don't think it would be a good idea. Sadahiko said glumly as he stared at his cup of sake. What right do I have to face my kin when I couldn't even prevent our village from being destroyed back in the Third War? Hell, I couldn't even stop that idiot Hashirama from starting the whole damn Jinchuriki idea of his. Even though I told him to just hold down Kurama so we could transport him and the other Biju to a location where humans couldn't bother them and vice versa. Naruto was about to say something when suddenly seals around the house began to go off, glowing blue as they did so. Looks like someone has intruded onto the island. Sadahiko commented as he looked at the seals. Konoha, Naruto growled in anger as he stood up, grabbing Sakura with his left hand. And judging from the size of several chakra signatures, Akatsuki maybe, and I think Orochimaru too. Soon the ground began to shake, causing dust to move about the house while outside the local animals began to run for cover. That quake, it would seem that Yujin is engaging them. With Yujin, Akatsuki and the Konoha group. Move to the right now. Jiraiya ordered the others. The rest of the Konoha team just barely managed to follow that order as a large fist missed them by several inches. However, the movement of something so large caused a powerful gust of wind to follow it, nearly dispelling several of Sai's ink birds. But the giant Yujin raised his right hand and shouted, "Yuba no Muchi," finger whips. And suddenly multiple tendrils shout from each of his fingertips. While the Konoha team managed to dodge several, they managed to dispel Ino, Shino and Iruka's, causing the three to fall towards the ground far below. "Hang on," Sasuke shouted as his summon did a nosedive towards the three. He had to dodge several more tendrils from Yujin, including having to shoot out a fireball to deflect a few, but the Uchiha managed to save the three shinobi and now 4 people were riding the Hawk summon. "This is the maximum load that I can carry, Sasuke-sama," the Hawk said to the Uchiha. "I understand, Koshin-san, thank you," Sasuke said to the Hawk respectfully. Yujin tried to hit them again, but several small explosions courtesy of Deidara distracted him. However, they did little to injure Yujin, who just glared at the bomber Nin, focusing his attention on the Akatsuki group. That didn't even tickle. Yujin roared as he tried to backhand Deidara. He missed, but he destroyed one of the wings of the Iwa bomber's clay bird. Deidara however jumped off, with another clay bird already ready to go. Trying to stop him, Yujin reached outward to grab Deidara and crush him, but he was once more stopped from several exploding eggs from Pain's summon. In the anime episode of Jiraiya's battle with Pain, the drill-beaked bird could lay eggs that exploded. That gave Deidara the chance to enlarge his bird, this time having a long neck on it. Well, at least it wasn't bird poop. Yujin thought to himself as he faced the orange-haired man. Pain's Diva Path stared at the titan-sized being with an impassive look on his face, his Rinnegan not showing a hint of emotions as his summon flew towards Yujin with his animal path and Konan still on. The Konoha group said people had managed to regroup and were now behind Yujin's gigantic form and flying over the island. "Jiraiya-sama, should we engage that being?" Lee asked the Sannin. "Our priority is retrieving Naruto. I don't think that giant will follow us through the island, and right now it's keeping Akatsuki busy and vice versa, giving us a head start." Jiraiya replied. "True, but we'll probably have to face it again when we leave the island." Shikamaru commented with a sigh. "One thing at a time, kid. Let's focus on finding the Gaki before worrying about that thing," the Toad Sage ordered as the group flew deeper into the island. "You're not going anywhere," Yujin roared as he swung his right arm towards the Konoha group. However, they were too far out of reach for the giant Yujin to grab them. But instead he disconnected his right hand from the arm and, like a projectile, made it fly towards the Konoha shinobi. "Shit incoming," Kiba yelled as he saw the giant hand fly towards them. The group had just gotten their birds to move, allowing the giant hand to go past them, but the force still caused the ink birds to dispel while Sasuke's summon was sent back to the summoning world. Fortunately they weren't too high up in the sky, so the Konoha shinobi were able to make a decent crash landing, adding chakra to their hands and feet to grab onto branches or whatever else they could grab to slow their fall. While Yujin's attention was on the Konoha shinobi, Pain's Diva Path used that moment to attack the giant directly. The leader of Akatsuki had just neared Yujin's face when said giant turned his gaze back towards him. Moving quickly, Pain raised both hands towards Yujin and said 2 words. Shinra Tensai. Suddenly an invisible force of gravity struck Yujin hard in the face, causing the giant to make a pained expression as he felt himself being pushed backwards. But just as it appeared that he would fall, Yujin said, the saying, the bigger they are the harder they fall. He began before lunging his head forward and smacking the Diva Path fully. Does not apply to me. Because I am super. Yujin yelled the last word dramatically. Pain's Diva Path began flying backwards into the ocean before it was suddenly puffed away by Animal Path and reappeared on his bird summon. Yujin narrowed his eyes at this. Though he is an imposter, this person is very well skilled with Hagoromo-sama and Hamura-sama's techniques and their dojutsu. And I can already figure out that this person has 4 other bodies that can each use a different path of the Rinnegan. That means the only people who can fight him have a chance of winning are basically myself, Naruto-sama and Sadahiko-sama. Yujin thought as a new right hand grew out of his arm. From atop his ride and far away from the battle, Obito narrowed his eyes behind his mask as he watched Yujin's new hand grow. It is indeed an impressive ability that a person possess, molecular manipulation, the ability to manipulate one's own molecules and what's more, manipulate the molecules of objects that come in contact with the user. And centuries of using that ability would make anyone formidable. As expected of the fable Yujin no Kobunsho, Yujin the Archivist. A being created from the Raikudo Sennin's Banbutsu Sozo no Jutsu creation of all things technique, using the remaining chakra of the Jubi and the father of all body-type Kekkei Genkei. Obito thought. Kuchio's no Jutsu, summoning technique. Animal Path said as it finished the hand seal. A poof of smoke later, a 3-headed dog with the Rinnegan appeared and jumped onto Yujin's left arm, growling. Yujin tried to shake the beast off, but the dog had a good grip as it ran up towards the giant's face. Get the hell off me, you dumb mutt, I'm not interested in puppies. Yujin yelled as he slammed his left hand on top of the dog, squishing it, or so he thought. A few seconds after the hand made contact, one of the dog's heads split off into a single body. Now the 2-headed dog was on Yujin's left arm while the single-head dog continued towards his head. Zofuku Kuchio's no Jutsu, amplification summoning technique. Yujin said in shock as he kept trying to shake the dogs off. But every time he hit them they would just divide again. By now he had a total of 9 dogs running over his body, biting and clawing whenever they could. Yujin was so distracted by them that he didn't see a large clay bird flying towards his head. The moment he did see it, the projectile was already near his widened eyes. Katsu! Deidara cried from the top of his clay bird. The other large clay bird exploded right in front of Yujin, completely engulfing his face. While Yujin's body went limp, the dogs all over his body poof away as it crashed into the water. Well, that guy wasn't so tough. Deidara smirked as he looked at the giant corpse. As expected of Deidara-senpai. Toby commented, but inwardly he was thinking, there's no way Yujin would be killed by something so simple. Something's not right, but for now we can focus on capturing the Uzumaki brat. We continue forward and locate the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. If you spot any members of the Konoha group, kill them. Pain ordered as his summons began to fly once more, with Itachi and Kisame behind them. As the Akatsuki group flew towards the island, none of them bothered to notice that Yujin's body was turning into water before merging with the ocean. Nor did they notice a small human-sized lump appearing in the water heading towards the shore. Once reaching the closest sandy beach, the lump reformed into Eugen, back to his normal size including his cloak. Letting out a sigh, Eugen cracked his neck. Damn, that's what I called a close shave, just glad that none of those mutts bit me in the groin. Fixing it hurts as hell, he said as he began forming a quick hand seal. Suddenly 2 Eugen clones came out of the ground before the original. Alright, you go and check on Kiko-sama and make sure that the security is working, Eugen said to the first clone before shifting his gaze at the second clone. And you inform Sadahiko-sama of the situation. I shall search for Naruto-sama. Both clones nodded before hurrying off, one merging back into the ground while the other vanished into thin air. Now then, the original Eugen said as he started walking. Time to go hunting. And he too soon took off into the island. Elsewhere on the island, it seems that we're in luck, Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto said as he finished watching the battle between Eugen and Akatsuki. Akatsuki and Konoha drew the attention of the island's defender away from us, the silver-haired glass-wearing man said. When he got no reply from his master, Kabuto turned to look at Orochimaru. Said man was standing on the beach where the boat they took was anchored, and looking at the island's forest. Orochimaru-sama. The snake Sannin was silent for a few more seconds before finally turning to face Kabuto. Ah, my apologies, Kabuto-kun. I was just taking a look at the sights. I have to admit that the appearance and the wildlife on this island are quite impressive, a fitting place to be called Senso no Kanshima, Island of the War Gods. Orochimaru said when he spotted a very large bear passing through the trees. It was looking at them curiously before deciding not to bother and headed off. The Sannin smirked and then turned his attention towards a girl in her teens that had red eyes, wore glasses and had red spiky hair that went halfway down her back. She wore a purple long-sleeve vest, short black pants and shinobi sandals that reached her knees. Tell me, Karen-chan, how many chakra signatures do you sense? Karen closed her eyes for a moment, sensing the chakra signatures on the island. I sensed several chakra signatures clustered together. She began. Most of them are Chunin level with a few Jonin levels that are between high and mid level and one Kage level signature. That must be the Konoha team, Kabuto said as he walked towards Orochimaru. Behind him was a tall young man with short spiky orange hair and wore a simple short sleeve white shirt and gray shorts. I also sense a small group of Kage chakra signatures, one greater than the others. Karen continued. Along with that, I sensed 2 more Kage chakra signatures but separated from the others. One of the 2 is larger, perhaps even Biju level, and, she gasped, cutting off her own sentence. A look of surprise and fear appeared on my face. I sensed 2 other chakra sources, far bigger than the others, that the difference is clear as heaven and earth. These 2 are Biju level, maybe even greater. One is old but very bright and clear, and the other one, Karen paused again as a shiver went up her spine. Feels bound for some reason but still feels sinister and dark. She finished before finally taking in deep breaths to calm herself. Orochimaru raised an eyebrow, slightly curious about the 2 large chakra signatures Karen mentioned. He turned his attention towards Jugo, who was busy staring at a bird that had landed on his arm. The snake Sannin couldn't help but notice that the usually rampaging young man had been very calm lately ever since they arrived on the island. Jugo-kun, are you perhaps feeling anything? Or are your friends telling you something? Orochimaru asked. Jugo was silent for a moment, listening to the birds chirping. Finally the bird flew off as the orange-haired man looked at the snake Sannin. They're saying that several invaders have gathered here on the island and that we should avoid the center of the island for the sake of our sanity. What does that mean? Kabuto asked, raising an eyebrow at the comment. I'm not sure, they didn't go into details, Jugo said before adding. But they did say that the island's creators are still on this island and if we value our lives we should avoid the island's center at all cost. Orochimaru's eyes widened upon hearing that. If what he heard were true, then the birds were basically telling Jugo that both Hachiro and Sadahiko were still alive and were on this island. The idea that two powerful beings from over 100 years ago being alive was intriguing to say the least for the snake Sanin. Interesting, Orochimaru murmured as he looked ahead at the forest before he began walking towards it. First let us go greet the Konoha shinobi and our missing Jinchuriki, he said as he entered the forest, followed by Kabuto, Jugo and a reluctant Karen. With the Konoha group, the Konoha nins were still recuperating after the unexpected fall from the sky courtesy of Yujin's hand. They had been lucky that the trees were very high up and had many branches for them to grab on, cushion their fall, otherwise they would have been a lot worse off. Currently they were regrouping since they were currently in unfamiliar territory and most likely hostile too. I assume that everyone is still in one piece? Jiraiya asked as he looked at everyone. No one had any serious injuries, a few scrapes here and there along with twigs and sticks stuck to their clothing, but nothing terrible. We were fortunate that the fist hadn't hit us directly. Otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation. Yugao muttered as she shifted the katana, originally belonging to her late lover Hayate, on her back. How do we do this, Jiraiya-sama? Shizune asked the Toad Sage after finishing checking her medical equipment. We should split into groups in order to cover more ground. Sai suggested. He was hoping that by doing that it would be easier for him to get away from the others and begin his real mission. Bad idea, Inky. Enko commented. We're in an unknown area and our target probably knows it better. Also we have a group of S-rank missing nin right behind us. Splitting into small groups will just make things difficult for us and probably easy pickings for Akatsuki. The snake mistress said. Enko's right. Jiraiya said, much to Sai's discouragement. We'll stick together so that way in case we run into Akatsuki we have a better chance of fighting them. But remember, if something is to happen to Kakashi or if you're all to fall back immediately, this isn't the time for heroics. Suddenly Kiba and Akamaru picked up an odd sound thanks to their superior hearing. Addressing the others, Kiba asked, "Hey, doesn't anyone else hear a whirling sound?" Before anyone could reply, a man-sized tornado appeared, smashing and ripping through the trees as it headed straight for the Konoha team. The shinobi just barely managed to jump out of the way of the tornado, scattering and landing on rocks, the ground or branches. The last two to jump away were Neji and Choji, but they also were the ones that saw something within the spinning vortex of sharp wind, a black coat person wearing a hood over their face. Said person extended his hands towards them. Once they were just inches from the two Konoha nins, the hooded man murmured one word. Kushu, airstrike, and then Neji and Choji were struck by multiple invisible small blades of wind, cutting their bodies and sending them flying backwards, crashing into trees. Neji's impact left a small dent in the tree he hit while Choji created a man-sized hole in his. Sasuke instantly recognized the attire the hooded man was wearing, but the others did not make the connection yet as they watched their friends being injured. Neji-Nisan. Choji-kun. Hinata shouted in horror as she watched the two flying backwards. Bastard. Tenten yelled as she unrolled a scroll and fired a barrage of kunai at the hooded man. Tenten, no. Sasuke shouted. However, as the barrage of weapons went flying, the hooded man disappeared and then reappeared on a high branch before the Konoha group. His hood flying off, thus revealing his tan face, spiky red hair, blue eyes and whisker marks on his cheeks as he glared at the intruders from Konoha. Naruto. Kiba shouted, being the first to register the attacker's identity. It took the others a few seconds to comprehend that and a few more seconds for them to take in his features. A few of the women couldn't help but blush a little seeing how handsome Naruto had become. Naruto said nothing at first as he stared at his former comrades. He had to admit that they had gotten better if they could all dodge his Tatsumaki Fudo tornado tunnel pretty easily, well, most of them, that is. I have to admit I was suspecting a lot of things, but you weren't one of them, Iruka-sensei. Naruto said seriously as he looked at the Chunin instructor. I was sent to see if I could convince you to come back peacefully. Iruka stated with a pleading look in his eyes. I think it should be obvious by now that I have no intention of going back to that rotting village. Naruto replied venomously. Those had 13 years to make up for their mistakes and blew it from the very beginning. And I won't be going back just because you people don't want to lose your precious weapon. Now Naruto, none of us, Jiraiya tried to explain but was cut off. Don't try to sweeten it. Naruto roared at the Toad Sage. And I don't want to hear a peep out of you, you worthless excuse of a godfather. Or should I say former godfather? How did you know that? Jiraiya asked, genuinely surprised. You will be surprised by how much I've learned these past few years. Naruto commented with his arms crossed. Furthermore, you people are on sacred land of the Uzumaki clan and thus you must leave now. I don't really think the clan can claim this place if they're extinct. Kiba commented. That was a bad move as the Inuzuka suddenly kneeled over in pain. Kiba was clutching his left leg, which had a hole in it, courtesy of one of Naruto's Kuki Yuba air finger. Watch your mouth, mutt, I'm still here. Naruto growled in barely restrained anger. Now since I would rather not have this getting any worse as it is, I'll give you guys the chance to leave, and never search for me again. You can tell Ba-chan that for me. The Uzumaki said. Naruto-kun, please be reasonable. Akatsuki is here on this island and is after you. Come back to Konoha where you can be safe. Shizune pleaded to her little brother figure while helping Ino and Sakura heal Choji and Neji. Ichiraku and Konohamaru also miss you. Iruka added, hoping to help the blonde see reason. Shizune Nichan, Iruka-sensei, I'm sorry but I will not return. Tsukiji and Ayame Nichan have my eternal gratitude for everything they've done for me over the years. And I do miss Konohamaru and his friends, however, Naruto said as he began to flex his fingers for the coming battle. I have too much to lose in going back. I won't kill you, though I might castrate Jiraiya and Kakashi, but I won't hold back either. Naruto-kun, Hinata murmured sadly, tears threatening to come out. I guess there is no way we can convince you, huh? Jiraiya said glumly. Naruto glared at the man, causing Jiraiya to shrink a little under it. No. With that said, Naruto acted first, forming a fast set of hand seals. Futon. Sukiyaki, wind release, moon fall. And waving his arms outwards, Naruto launched a barrage of spinning crescent-shaped wind projectiles towards the Konoha nins. The shinobi managed to jump out of the way with Sakura and Ino carrying Neji and Choji respectively. The wind projectiles shattered the ground easily while a few left very deep cuts in nearby trees. Shikamaru had landed on a tree branch further away from the other. Damn, that was some attack. If we hadn't moved we would have been torn to shreds. Shikamaru muttered. This is troublesome, I'm not sure how we can beat Naruto without killing him. Before Shikamaru could think of a move to make Naruto suddenly appear in front of him with lightning speed. Moving too quickly for Nara to react, Naruto placed his hands on both sides of Shikamaru's head, fingers bent and pointing at the cheeks. Denpa, electric wave, Naruto murmured and released electricity from the tips of his fingers that struck Shikamaru instantly. Shikamaru let out a scream of pain for a moment before his eyes rolled to the back of his head and he went unconscious, now falling down to the ground. That takes care of one of the more troubling ones. Naruto said as he watched Shikamaru hit the ground. Shikamaru. Ino cried as she watched her other teammate go down. Suddenly a shadow engulfed her and Choji, whom she was carrying, causing the blonde Kunoichi to turn around. Coming down upon her was Yujin, with an enlarged right arm that was reared back and ready to pound her. But thankfully Guy and Lee appeared and the sensei and student kicked Yujin's large hand, knocking it off course. Yujin of course managed to recover and perform a backwards flip and landed beside Naruto. Mind telling me how the hell you let both Konoha and Akatsuki get past you? Naruto asked Yujin, a mildly annoyed tone in his voice. My apologies Naruto-sama. I had underestimated them. Plus it's difficult for me to use my other techniques when I'm in my full Kyojin Titan form. Yujin replied. Naruto let out a sigh before looking back at the Konoha shinobi. They had begun to gather on the ground with Ino, Shizune and Sakura tending to Shikamaru, Choji and Neji. If it were just these guys then it would be a lot easier. Anyway I'll go deal with Akatsuki while you handle these guys, okay? Naruto said. Understood Naruto-sama. Also my clone that went to check up on Kiko-sama has informed me that Gurren Dono left to see if she could be of assistance. She is currently moving through the trees with my clone. Yujin said. Really? Naruto asked, getting a nod from Yujin making Naruto sigh. I told her that she didn't have to but I guess it can't be helped. Anyway, tell her that she can come here to help you. It would be tricky for me to fight Akatsuki if I had to watch someone else's back. Also the goal is to seriously maim, incapacitate, not kill. Naruto ordered. Now then, give these guys a distraction so they don't chase after me okay? Naruto asked as he looked back at the Konoha group. I'll probably have to recall Seoku and Uyoku in order to combat the Rinnegan and the other Akatsuki members. I can always summon Kimi, Kudari and Kenri to watch over Kiko-chan. She misses those fox kits anyway. Plus I don't know if Sadahiko Hiji will get involved since he'd only come if it were getting too hectic. Plus he doesn't like fighting clansmen. Naruto thought before Yujin's voice brought him out of his thoughts. Got it, Yujin said as he jumped off the tree branch and landed safely on the ground before the Konoha shinobi. Kiba was the first to react. Hey you're the giant bastard we saw at shore. Inuzuka shouted as he and the other able bodies took up fighting stances. So he's an ally of Naruto's. That will make things more complicated. Kakashi said when he saw Naruto and Yujin. However right now he was keeping his eyes on Naruto, wanting to see what his former student would do right now. Then perhaps that will help convince me to give up and leave. Yujin remarked as he got down. When his fingers touched the ground they began to merge with the earth. Yujin then made a gripping motion, as if he was grabbing the ground itself. In the meantime I'll have to give you all a butt whooping. Chiyoha, ground wave. Then, as if shaking a blanket or a bed sheet, Yujin picked the ground up and gave it a strong shake. The result was creating a large tidal wave of earth heading straight towards the Konoha team. The sudden attack took the shinobi by surprise and they were soon caught up in the wave of earth. The large earth wave scattered the originally large group into several smaller groups. One group and the largest was Jiraiya, Kakashi, Yamato, Sasuke, Yugao, Kiba, Akamaru and Tenten. The second group was Guy, Lee, Sakura and Anko. The third group was Shizune, Ino, Shino, Asuma, Hinata and Iruka along with the injured Neji, Choji and Shikamaru. And the final group was just Sai. With the group being scattered by Yujin's technique, Naruto took this chance to escape and prepare for his fight with Akatsuki. Yujin spotted the closest group, which was Guy's, and made his way towards them. The 5 shinobi had just begun to recover from that attack when Yujin landed before them. Well guess I'll kick this party off with you a lot, he said. Back with Jiraiya's group, the shinobi had just finished recovering. Damn what kind of technique was that? Tenten asked no one in particular. A Doden jutsu perhaps, Yugao suggested as she flexed her right shoulder. Whatever it is now is not the time to think about it. Jiraiya ordered. Kiba, can you catch Naruto's scent? Kiba was silent for a moment, sniffing the air along with Akamaru. Finally after a few seconds they broke the silence. I got him but he's moving away from here, he might be trying to escape. Inuzuka commented. Or heading to engage Akatsuki. Kakashi said. We need to hurry. Agreed, let's move. Jiraiya ordered. Wait, what about the others? Tenten asked. We can't search for them right now. If we lose Naruto then this mission is a failure. Jiraiya retorted. I can actually smell the others since Hinata and Shino are with them. Kiba said since he was used to his teammates' sense by now. They're together with some of the others so they should be fine if they stick together. But I can't get Sai's scent at all. That caused Kakashi and Jiraiya to cast worried looks at one another before pushing it aside. We'll regroup with them later. Right now we have to catch up to Naruto before he gets away or Akatsuki gets him to move now. Jiraiya shouted, already heading into the trees, the others right behind him. With Yujin versus Guy, Lee, Sakura and Anko. Yeehaw! Yujin cried as he stretched his left fist at Sakura. The pink-haired Kunoichi managed to dodge it before countering with a barrage of kunai at the green-skinned man. However, Yujin merely deflected them with a swing of his arm, not even injured by the blade projectiles. Huh, I've seen papers that were pointier than those. Yujin laughed. Sanejishu, hidden shadow snake hands. A female voice said from behind Yujin. Said person spun around to see Anko raising her left arm and suddenly several snakes came out of her sleeves. All of them were heading straight towards Yujin with fangs ready to strike. But Yujin merely raised his right arm again and allowed the snakes to sink their fangs into it. Not even flinching, Yujin grabbed one of the snakes and with a strong tug, pulled Anko towards him, flying in the air. Koka. Tekken, harden. Iron fist, Yujin said as his left arm and hand turned into iron. Then with a powerful swing he delivered a strong punch in Anko's stomach. This caused the snake mistress to cough out blood before being sent backwards by the force of the punch. As Yujin removed the snakes from his arm, killing them in the process, he felt his right arm going a bit stiff. Poison, he muttered. Correct, Guy said as he reappeared before Yujin while Lee had managed to grab Anko before she took any more damage. Anko is an expert at poison and they're very deadly. Since you're a friend of Naruto-kun's it would be unyouthful to let you die. Surrender now and we shall give you the antidote. Guy said. Yujin just blinked at the man before returning his attention back to his arm. With a quick squeeze of the fist the poison began to seep back out through the holes left by the snake's fangs. Guy watched with dumbfounded shock as the holes closed once all the poison was removed. Sorry buddy, Yujin started before delivering an extended punch to Guy, sending the taijutsu master backwards. But I've been built to be immune to poison, along with some other special features. Yujin said before spinning around and flashing Guy, Lee and Anko his rear. So you can take that offer and bite my millennia old. How about a punch to the chin? Sakura roared, as she appeared before Yujin, ready to deliver a powerful uppercut. With no time to react Sakura's fist met the bottom of Yujin's chin, and sent Yujin's head into the air, neck still attached to it and the body stretching all the way. Ehhhh. Sakura shouted in complete shock as she watched Yujin's neck stretch more. She wasn't the only one surprised. Guy, Anko and Lee were also stunned dumb at the sight. Having been trained under Tsunade Senju, the three shinobi had expected Sakura's hit to send Yujin flying in the air, not cause his neck to stretch. Yujin, head still in the air and neck stretched, merely blinked before looking down at Sakura. Like I said, I've been built with some unique features. He said before shooting his head down towards Sakura, similar to a headbutt. Sakura had just managed to move out of the way when Yujin's head hit the ground, causing a crater to form with the shockwave hitting Sakura, causing her to skid across the ground several feet away, ending with a grunt. What the hell is this guy? Anko asked while Lee helped her up. The punch Yujin delivered to her had broken a rib or two and knocked the air out of Anko. She was still trying to regain her breathing. Back with Yujin, said person's neck had begun to shrink until it had returned back to its original form, with Yujin not looking the least bit dazed of having it extended or just making contact with the ground. Still, that wasn't a bad punch. I guess Tsunade is even training, whatever you are. Yujin commented on Sakura. What the hell do you mean, whatever I am? Sakura asked as she got up, getting into a fighting stance. Can't you recognize a girl when one's in front of you? She asked, annoyed. Yujin blinked for a few seconds, taking in Sakura's features before his eyes widened. Holy crap, you're a girl? He asked, sounding genuinely shocked by the revelation. What a surprise. For a moment I thought you were a pink-haired ape. Yujin said with a comically deadpan face. Imagine Shiki's face from One Piece, Strong World. The other three Konoha shinobi were gaping at the open comment Yujin made, wondering if he had a death wish. Sakura, however, began to see red as tick marks formed over her forehead. Shanaru. Sakura roared as she charged towards Yujin blindly, fist raised. Wait, Sakura-san, stop. Lee said as he let go of Anko. The young taijutsu expert knew that Sakura was walking into a trap, with her rage blinding her and all that. But to his and everyone else's surprise, when Sakura was close enough, she changed positions. Instead of hitting Yujin with a fist to the face, Sakura brought up her right leg and kicked Yujin right in between the legs, at the groin to be exact. Everyone had gone silent when that happened. Guy and Lee had instinctively covered their groins in fear of getting hit, while Anko had a smirk on her face, thinking Sakura had a bit of a sadistic side in her. However, that quickly changed when said girl jumped back from Yujin, now hopping around comically. Sakura was clutching her right leg with both hands, groaning in pain all the while. Yujin, however, didn't even look the least bit fazed from having just been hit in the balls. Instead, he did something else. Teppiki dakoi, iron wall heave ho. He yelled as he thrust both palms forward, hitting Sakura with an invisible but powerful force that sent the girl flying backwards. Sakura-san. Lee cried in horror as she watched the medic Kunoichi land a good fair distance away. First, I knew that you were a girl and was just tricking you. Yujin said out loud to no one in particular. And second, the reason that your kick didn't work is simple. I've got balls of steel. Yujin remarked proudly with his hands on his hips and his chest puffed out. But his gloating was interrupted when Lee and Guy attacked, and soon the three were engaged in a 2-on-1 taijutsu match. Guy and Lee were pretty impressed by how easily Yujin was parrying their attacks. Guy was Konoha's best taijutsu master, while Lee, his apprentice, was almost near his level. So to see someone able to defend himself with ease was quite a sight. Finally Yujin saw an opening. Grabbing Guy by the arm, Yujin threw him to the side before delivering a kick to Lee's chest, causing the Chunin to stagger backwards. However, before Lee could recover, Yujin launched another attack. Dongan Apatsu, bullet one shot. And his right fist shot forward, hitting Lee right in the face, sending the Chunin crashing into a tree. Now then, where is the other bushy brow? Yujin asked as he looked around for Guy. Konoha Senpu, leaf whirlwind. Yujin's eyes widened as he just raised his arms in time to form a defensive X in front of his face, stopping Guy's kick. The two were now locked in a stalemate, with Guy trying to push Yujin back with his leg while Yujin tried to hold Guy back. After a few seconds it looked like Guy was overpowering Yujin, whose knees began to bend. What a powerful kick! Yujin murmured as he was still holding the leg in place. I should be strong, but this kick, I'm going to fall, falling, Yujin repeated as his resistance began to weaken. Just as it seemed that Guy was about to win, Yujin suddenly pushed forward, sending Guy into the air. Gonna not! Yujin cried as Guy did a backwards flip in the air before landing, just as Yujin followed up with a loud, yeehaw. With his hands in the air forming the victory sign with his fingers. You weren't going to fall. You sure fooled me. Guy exclaimed in shock as he watched Yujin standing tall. Yujin turned to look at Guy. HMPH, you're pretty energetic, I'll admit, but it seems like you need some lesson in manners. So in that case, Yujin said before disappearing. Guy's eyes widened seeing his target disappear before reappearing right in front of him. Eugen's had his arms crossed and his fingers stretched out, needles forming from the tips. Bunshi Sosa Haijutsu, Keigenration molecular manipulation secret art, demon blade lightning needles. Eugen cried before delivering a barrage of stabs into Guy's body, mainly the sides of his chest, thighs and arms. Guy instantly felt his body freeze up, not moving no matter how hard he tried. Is this some kind of paralyzing technique? Guy thought to himself. Seems like you recognized what happened. Eugen said as his left eye widened. Shibo Bakuhatsu, death shot blast. He cried before snapping his left eye shut. Suddenly an invisible force zoomed right towards Guy from the wink, hitting the taijutsu master dead on. It caused an explosion that sent Guy back several feet. This time Eugen widened his right eye. Jigoku Bakuhatsu, hell shot blast. And again he snapped his right eye shut, firing another invisible force from the wink. When this hit Guy it created a powerful shockwave that once more sent him back, with Guy coughing up blood. And finally Eugen widened both eyes. And Ginga Bakuhatsu, galaxy shot blast. Eugen snapped both eyes shut and a few seconds later Guy was hit by numerous explosions and shockwaves, sending the man high into the air before landing back on the ground, forming a small crater. Guy's body had numerous burnt marks on it and he was twitching a lot too. Kaiten. Gokaku no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. Enko shouted from behind Eugen. The snake mistress fired a large fireball at Eugen, who was immediately engulfed by the flames. Enko was pretty sure that something like that wouldn't kill him, so she quickly made her way towards Guy to check on the taijutsu master's conditions. However, just before she could reach him, a hand shot out of the flames and wrapped around her body, squeezing Enko's her body as well. Ah! Enko managed to groan as she looked towards the source of where the hand came from, expecting to see Eugen walk out of the flames. But to her surprise she saw that the hand itself had come out of the fire itself, with said flames reforming into Eugen, who was completely unharmed. Just to let you know, hubby-chan, I'm not a pervert, so I really take no comfort in holding you in such a way. Eugen stated seriously as the smoke from the flames reformed into his cloak. But I can't really take any chances of holding back either. I won't kill you, but I'll have to roughen you up a bit. Not on my watch. Sakura shouted as she came down in between Eugen and Enko, a tanto in her hand. With a strong swing Sakura cut Eugen's arm off right in the middle, freeing Enko. Eugen however barely looked concerned of losing an arm or even in pain. In fact, he just began growing a new arm to replace the one lost. While that was happening, Sakura and Lee landed beside Enko and Guy, the former entangling herself from Eugen's dismembered arm. Sakura-san, is Guy-sensei okay? Lee asked worriedly as he looked at the twitching form of his sensei. The pink-haired Kunoichi quickly went to check Guy. She ran a diagnostic jutsu, her hands glowing green, and she managed to stop Guy's twitching. He's okay but unconscious and he took a serious beating from that guy. I need to go somewhere safe so I can heal him. Sakura reported. I'll take him to Shizune-chan. Enko said, surprising Sakura. You two should realize now that out of the three of us, I'm at a bigger disadvantage of fighting this guy. She said as she looked at Eugen, who was almost done reforming his arm. This guy is immune to poisoning and it doesn't seem like ninjutsu will work on him. The best chance we have is taijutsu, which you two are more skilled than even me. Sakura had to admit that what Enko said made sense. Okay Lee, and I will hold him off while you find Shizune-senpai. Sakura said with Lee nodding in agreement. Enko returned the nod and then put Guy's arm over her shoulder before taking off into the trees. Eugen had just finished his new arm before he looked at the two remaining shinobis. So it's just going to be you two, huh? Eugen asked as he stared at Sakura and Lee. You sure you two can handle me? You got in some good shots, bastard, but this time we're ready. Sakura said as she got into a fighting stance. We won't be falling for any of your tricks. Yosh, Lee said in agreement. While you may be a friend of Naruto-kun's, I will hold nothing back against someone who uses unyouthful tactics, you green-skinned person. Lee said before freezing along with Sakura when Yujin began radiating killing intent. You see, Yujin was well aware of his unique skin color. And while the fault lied with him for having done something over 1,000 years ago, he was still very sensitive about the color of his skin. So when Lee called him a green-skinned person, it set something off inside Yujin. Are you talking to me? He asked slowly while his body slowly began getting bigger. Lee blinked, confused. He said in response. Are you talking to me? Yujin asked again. This time he was noticeable bigger, his cloak tearing off, revealing his increased muscles and dark blue pants and black shinobi sandals. Lee, maybe you shouldn't have called him green. Sakura said nervously as she and Lee watched Yujin become bigger and more muscular. Are you talking to me? Yujin roared again. This time he was about twice the size of Sakura and Lee. His muscles had gotten bigger too and a lot bulkier, while his voice got deeper too as he glared down at the two. This won't end well, Lee and Sakura thought as they stared at Yujin's new form. They call me Mr. Green, Yujin said before letting out a war cry and charged towards the two surprised and freaked out Chunins. With sigh, the ink user had to admit that it was easier than he imagined, getting away from the rest of the Konoha group. The technique that the green-skinned man had used had effectively separated everyone from one another, and it was just a stroke of luck that he had ended up by himself. He wasn't worried about rejoining the others once he was done, though depending on the outcome he wouldn't have to. Sai was going in a straight direction, having seen the location where his target would most likely be when he was on his ink bird moments ago. Now all he had to do was get there quickly. He could hear the sounds of battle from afar, but he couldn't tell who was fighting whom, and he didn't want to take the chance of running into an enemy. A few minutes later, Sai stopped at a tree branch to look at a clearing before him, or what was on it. Before him in the middle of the forest was a giant fortress that had once been the now extinct Sora no Kuni, Sky Country. It looked exactly like the pictures Sai had seen in the textbooks back in Konoha. However, there were some slight differences, a notable one being that the Uzumaki clan symbol had been etched in several places on the floating fortress. However, Sai's attention was soon drawn to several figures down below, standing before what he assumed was an entrance into the fortress. There were 3 people total, plus 2 creatures. One of the people Sai recognized as Kiko Uzumaki, Naruto's clone. The 2 others were males and much older too. The youngest one appeared to be around 14 and 15, slightly tanned skin, magenta eyes and long pale green hair. He wore a male kimono that was jade green on the inside and gray outside, with cadet blue pants with bandages down to ankles that ended at dark brown shinobi sandals. Tied around his right hip was a shuriken holster, while he had a hip pouch over his lower back. The other man was much older, appearing in his mid-30s to early 40s. He was very muscular and had slightly fair skin along with combed brown hair that ended at his neck, along with pale green eyes with what almost looked like gills underneath them. The man was also very muscular and wore a sleeveless brown shirt under a sleeveless gray vest that was unzipped with white bandages wrapped around his forearms. The man also had matching pants with bandages wrapped around his ankles and had brown shinobi sandals. However, it was the last 2 that had Sai concerned, as they were clearly not human and looked more like giant ogres. Those 2 were clearly the largest amongst the 5, appearing to be twice the size of a full-grown human. Sai noted that both appeared to be very similar in terms of physical appearance, except one was red and the other was blue, but both had white striped markings over their bodies and black hands and feet and spiked tails. The blue one was muscular and had a large horn in the middle of its forehead, 2 downward pointing tusks and what looked like 5 eye sockets in the form of a star, an eye in each one. It had sharp claws while carrying a shield in its left hand. The red one was similar to the blue one, being large and muscular, but it had 2 horns on its forehead, 2 upward-pointing tusks, sharp claws, a single large eye socket with 1 eye in it, and carried a large battle axe in its right hand. Basically they're Zenki and Goki from Shaman King. The 2 ogres bowed to Kiko before vanishing from their spot. Once he was sure that they were gone, Sai jumped down into the clearing, right before the 3 people, an emotionless look on his face. Surprised of Sai's sudden arrival, the 2 men quickly got up and into fighting stances. However, Kiko just blinked as she stared at Sai for several seconds before an ear-splitting grin appeared over her face. "Uncle Sai," she squealed as she tackled hug said person. Sai's expressionless face disappeared, replaced by a small smile as he hugged the little girl back. "Hello there, Kiko-chan, it's good to see you too. It's been a year since we last met, right?" Sai said. "Yeah," Kiko said as she untangled from Sai. "Daddy's not here right now though." "That's okay, I'll just wait for him with you if that's okay," Sai said, thinking that it would be less wise to go back to Konoha now that he had made it this far already. "Sure. And you can come inside, I want to show you my pictures I made," Kiko said cheerfully before grabbing Sai by the hand. Not even giving him a chance to speak, the little girl began pulling him into the fortress, followed by a curious Yukimaru and Gozu. With the Akatsuki group, this island is a lot larger than what we saw at the shore, Itachi commented as he and his group continued flying over the island, looking for signs of the Jinchuriki. They had remained as a group under Pain's orders. The real Pain, Nagato, had already stationed himself in a good location, one of the tallest trees, in order to control his paths. "Ooh," Toby said in awe as he saw the explosions from the results of Yujin's battle with some of the Konoha shinobi. "Looks like something interesting are happening over there," he exclaimed excitedly. "I do not detect the Jinchuriki's chakra over there though," Itachi said in response. "Neither am I," meaning he might be hiding his chakra right now. Pain replied. "However, I'm sensing several Konoha shinobi chakra sources heading towards us." Kisame was about to say something when he suddenly noticed that it gotten a bit brighter in the sky. Looking up along with the rest of the Akatsuki group, they were all surprised to see Naruto in the air above him. Around him were several human-sized purple arrow-shaped projectiles. Onmyoten, Satan Yajirishi Yin-Yang release, Star Heaven arrows, Naruto said before launching the multiple arrows down at the group of missing nin. The Akatsuki barely had any time to react as the arrows impaled their flyers and then exploded. Deidara and Toby had managed to jump off their clay birds before they exploded. Pain's summon was quickly sent back to the summoning world while Animal Path and Diva Path along with Conan successfully got out of the way. Itachi's crow took less damage than the others, with an injury to the left wing, and was sent back to the summoning world, with Itachi and Kisame landing on some nearby tree branches. While none of them were seriously injured, they had all been separated from one another too. After watching the results of his technique, Naruto made his way down to the ground, landing before Pain's 2 paths and Conan. Naruto had a stern look in his eyes as he stared at Pain's impassive look. With Conan, though she remained calm, she couldn't help but feel a bit nervous. She could feel the large amount of chakra that Naruto was leaking out, and to her shock it was on the same level as Nagato's. And though she wasn't a censor, Conan knew that it wasn't the Kyuubi's chakra, meaning it was entirely Naruto's. And if he also mastered the Kyuubi's chakra, then even Nagato will be hard-pressed to fight, Conan thought. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Naruto spoke. "So you're the leader of Akatsuki?" he asked. "I am Pain. That is all you need to know," Pain replied emotionlessly. "I also know that your real name is Nagato," Naruto said, actually surprising both Pain and Conan. "And that you're an Uzumaki too." "How does he?" Conan murmured but was cut off by Pain. "How do you know of this?" Pain said, a bit of aggravation in his voice. Kind of easy really. There is no other explanation of how you got past the barrier, which only allows those with Uzumaki blood to pass through. Your chakra signature is just like mine. Naruto replied. Besides, why do you want to know anyway? After all, you're just here to capture me, right? Naruto asked, which seemed to annoy Pain. Or did you originally come here hoping for answers about, say, the reason why your mother wasn't in Uzushio? Diva Path's eyes narrowed while Animal Path clapped its hands together. Soon 4 smokes appeared beside them, revealing 3 more orange-hair men plus 1 bald with Akatsuki cloaks, piercings over their bodies, and the Rinnegan. Conan seemed a bit surprised of how quickly Pain summoned his other paths before the fight even started. Is Nagato being lured in by the Jinchuriki words? No, he's doing it because he knows that this boy will pose a challenge for even him. Conan said to herself. Both she and Nagato knew that the person before them couldn't be taken lightly if what his reputation went by. So he has 4 other bodies too. From what Eugen told me, I guess that each body can use one of the Rinnegan's paths. So I can already confirm that the one with the ponytail is the animal path and the short spiky hair one is the diva path. I need to do this carefully in order to figure out which body has what ability. Naruto thought as he summoned 2 of his special double-edged ninjutsu. Seeing this, Pain went first. Animal quickly clapped its hands together before slamming both on the ground. Kuchio's no jutsu summoning technique. It said before 3 large poof of smoke appeared. Charging out of the smoke were 3 large animals. A rhino on the left, an ox on the right, and finally the multi-headed dog in the center, all of the charging towards Naruto. Said person just stood where he was before smirking, something that caught Pain's attention, but before he could figure out what it was, the rhino and ox summons were suddenly stopped by red and blue ogres. The blue ogre was using its shield to hold back the ox while the red ogre was using its axe to hold back the rhino. The multi-headed dog was still charging towards Naruto, but was suddenly cut in 2 by Sakura, the bladed extended to slice through the large summon. What are those? Pain asked in disbelief as he watched the 2 ogres, who despite being bigger than humans, were still smaller than his summons. Yet they had managed to stop said animals with ease. Naruto smirked. They are Seoku, the blue ogre, and Uyoku, the red ogre. Naruto said while the split halves of the dog fell on both sides of him. They're creatures I created from my onmyoten and usually serve for a different purpose. But when I need them they are pretty reliable and very good working together. Plus, they are very strong. To prove his point, the 2 ogres finally pushed back their respective opponents. Seoku then followed his attack up with bashing the ox's head several times with his shield before delivering a swift and strong uppercut with his right clawed fist, sending the ox up in a poof of smoke. Uyoku however landed a strong punch with his left fist into the rhino's cheek, and while said animal was stunned, Uyoku finished it off by bringing its axe down on it, also sending the rhino back to the summoning realm. Naruto's attention however was on the dog, which had now turned into a 2-headed dog plus a single head dog, and both were preparing to pounce on Naruto. But instead of doing what it intended, the 2 dogs disappeared right before Naruto's eyes, who had one of his ninjutsu pointing at it. Pain's eyes widened, but his attention suddenly drifted to something in the sky above him. Looking up, Pain saw that it was Naruto's other ninjutsu with the Mikado seal on the handle. But that was quickly replaced by Pain's dog summons that appeared right above the 6 paths of Pain and Conan. Shit, Pain's animal path said before sending both dogs back to the summoning realm, saving them from being crushed by Pain's own summon. I guess first round goes to me Naruto asked jokingly with a smirk, Seoku and Uyoku standing in front of him in fighting stances. Diva Path's eyes narrowed while the bald-headed path, Asura Path, stood at the front. Interesting, you're stronger than I had originally imagined, he said before both of Asura's arms extended, revealing what looked like mini missiles popping out. Without warning, the path fired a barrage of missiles towards Naruto and the ogres. A mechanical body and weaponry. Must by the Asura path. Naruto thought before saying, Akuma Hime Demon Shriek. Suddenly Seoku and Uyoku stood side by side and in sync released a powerful sonic scream from their mouths. The sound waves were powerful as not only did they deflect the missiles, causing them to explode in midair, but also blew back Konan and Pain's paths as well as ripping the trees nearby off from the ground. But quickly the screaming ended, but before Pain could recover, Uyoku was on top of Asura path, and before said path could react, it was cut in two vertically by the ogre's axe. One down, Naruto murmured. I need to get into this fight. Konan thought to herself as she quickly turned her body into paper, forming wings on her back as she took to the air. Once she was high enough, she hardened her paper before launching them from her wings in the form of arrows right towards Naruto. But Seoku suddenly appeared before its master and raised his shield, deflecting the paper arrows and protecting Naruto. Konan, TCH, but before she could make another move a voice shouted, Kaden, Enden, fire release, flame bullet. A large flame bullet appeared heading towards Konan. However, the Akatsuki woman managed to dodge it in time before looking down to see the source of the attack. Coming out of the trees and landing on the recently made clearing was Jiraiya's group, all of them already in fighting stances. Damn, was hoping that Yujin would have kept them back. Naruto cursed as he watched the Konoha shinobi face the two Akatsuki members. This makes my plan a little bit more complicated, but with luck the other Akatsuki members will get here soon and keep these guys occupied. We're not letting you guys have Naruto. Kakashi said to Pain. He admitted he and the others were a bit confused, and kind of disturbed, that 5 people all had the same hair color, piercings, and the same odd eyes. But right now they had other matters to focus on. TCH, don't treat me like we're on the same side, Hitaki. Naruto said to his former sensei. I have no intentions of going with them or you guys. He added as Seoku and Uyoku took up defensive positions in front of him. At the front of his team, Jiraiya had ignored Kakashi's declaration and Naruto's rebuttal, setting his attention on the 6 people before him. His eyes were focused on the Diva Path and Konan. What's going on here? Is that really Yahiko? If so, then how does he have Nagato's Rinnegan? Better yet, how do 4 or 5 other people have it? Jiraiya asked himself as he stared at the 5 bodies plus the 2 halves of the Asura path. Finally Pain's Diva Path spoke. It's been a while, Jiraiya-sensei. He said in his usual monotone voice. That surprised everyone except for Naruto and Konan. Sensei. What's he talking about, Jiraiya-sama? Yugao asked the Toad Sage. Jiraiya let out a sigh. Well, for short, those 2 were my students at one point, back during the Second War. He said, causing the Konoha team to look in surprise. And the eyes of the orange hair man are the Rinnegan. Sasuke finished. Several people looked at him in curiosity. I learned about it in my clan's archives. It was the dojutsu of the Raikudo Sennin, the man who founded ninjutsu. Sasuke added. But they're supposed to be a myth. Well, it's not, and don't underestimate it. It has abilities I don't know, and with 5 of them possessing it, this won't be easy. Jiraiya said as he already began preparing to go into sage mode. Kakashi, I need you and the others to buy me some time while I prepare something. I'll summon one of my toads to assist you. He said with his voice low. However, Pain was done waiting and acted first. The Diva Path raised its right hand and murmured, Shinra Tensai, and suddenly an invisible force slammed into the Konoha group as well as Naruto and his ogres. The force sent most of them flying back, though Naruto managed to recover quickly. Guess I better call out one of my summons now too. I will not allow you to resist anymore. Pain suddenly said with Diva Path appearing right in front of Naruto. Reacting with incredible instincts, Naruto managed to raise Sekirei in time to block a black metallic rod that had appeared from Pain's sleeve. The other paths and Konan did not remain idle. Naraka path snuck off to revive Asura path, Animal path went to engage Jiraiya and Kakashi, Preta and Human path were off to fight Kiba, Tenzo and Sasuke while Konan prepared her battle with Yugao and Tenten. Back with Naruto, said person was finally able to get some distance from the Diva path when Ryoku appeared, bringing its axe down. Now Kuchio's no jutsu summoning technique. Naruto said just as the same time Jiraiya and Animal Path performed the same technique. 3 large pillars of smokes later and soon revealed 3 large animals. Animal Path had once again summoned the 3-headed dog, all heads growling. And Jiraiya had summoned the Toad Chief, Gamabunta, and said Toad wasn't happy. Jiraiya, why have you summoned me? Gamabunta roared at his old friend, who was currently on top of the large toad's head. Sorry Bunta, but I'm going to need your help right now as I prepare to summon the 2 toad elders. Jiraiya replied seriously. Ma and Pa, why in Kami's name would you need to summon them? And where the hell are we? Gamabunta asked as he took out his pipe. We're on the island of the war gods and right now I'm fighting against a user of the Rinnegan. The Toad Sage said as he began applying red marks on his face. The eyes of the Toad Chief widened at the mention of the legendary dojutsu. The Rinnegan. How wait, why are you on a place as dangerous as the island of the war gods? Hell, I doubt even that bastard Manda would come here. Gamabunta commented. Jiraiya let out a sad sigh. Naruto, he said in return. Before the Toad Chief could question what he meant, another voice, this time more elegant and feminine, spoke, catching everyone's attention. Naruto-kun, it's been a while. Much to the surprise of everyone gathered, appearing from the third poof of smoke was a fox, around the same size as Gamabunta. It had elegant white fur, blue eyes with 7 tails moving about. The tips of the tail were orange along with the paws and 7 orange stripes running down from the back of the neck and connecting to the tails. On the top of the fox's head was Naruto. It has Kasumi-sama. I apologize for summoning you so unexpectedly. Naruto said respectfully. It's fine Naruto-kun. That silly mate of mine keeps saying I need to get out more often and not focus so much on the kits. Katsumi said with a tone of royalty before letting out a giggle at the end. Then she quickly turned serious. Still, for you to summon me the enemy must be strong. The last time you called me was to battle against Isobu's Jinchuriki. It is, Konoha and Akatsuki have both tracked me down and I need your help to confront them. Naruto said. Judging from the eyes of that dog over there, I have to say that one of your opponents possess Hagoromo-sama and Hamura-sama's Rinnegan. Then Katsumi's eyes narrowed as she looked at the Toad Chief. And, Gamabunta. Said Toad let out a little gulp before answering. Greetings Kasumi Dono, it's been a while. Gamabunta said. Kasumi looked like she was about to say something, but suddenly the multi-head dog attacked, restarting the battle. The Animal Path had also summoned the drill-beaked bird and the snake-tailed chameleon, the latter it used to hide from the others. Naruto focused chakra to his feet as Kasumi jumped back to avoid the dog's claws. One of her tails began to glow red and soon after Kasumi released a stream of fire at Pain's dog summon. The flames consumed the dog, causing it to let out a howl of pain before it managed to jump back, severe burns on its body. That fox can breathe fire? Jiraiya asked in surprise while Gamabunta dodged the drill-beak bird's claws. The fox summons can do more than that. Gamabunata said when he landed. As they grow, the foxes gain tails, the maximum being 9, though there have been rare occurrences of 10 tails. Anyway, each tail gives the fox a special ability, one of them being an element. Kasumi Dono is currently the strongest female fox and is the mate of Kogetsu, the chief fox of Kosanji Den, High Sacred Mountain Den. Damn, that's one hell of a summoning contract Naruto got his hands on. Jiraiya muttered while focusing chakra to prepare for Sage Mode. Oh, and by the way, once you're done with these Akatsuki punks, I'm leaving. Nor myself or the other members of my tribe have any desire of fighting the Gaki, let alone forcing him back to that hellhole. Gamabunta bellowed. Got it, Jiraiya said, wincing a bit. He hadn't forgotten how pissed off the Toads were when they learned of how Naruto's contract with them been annulled or how he was treated. Jiraiya was nearly skewered alive by enraged Gamabunta, and the only reason why he still had a contract with the Toads was because of their long time working together. Back with the rest of the Konoha team, they were about to engage their opponents when several explosions occurred all around them. Looking up, they saw Deidara riding on what appeared to be a giant clay dragon. The Iwa bomber quickly dropped several more clay bombs that had turned into small birds. Scatter! Kakashi ordered as he and several others got out of the way of the bombs. Tenzo, however, used his Mokuton and created a strong dome of wood to protect him and others from the explosions. Hey, now this is getting interesting, Kiba said with a smug grin as he and Akamaru prepared for combat. We could really use Sai right now, Kakashi said as he looked around for said student. Where's Sasuke? The young Uchiha had been separated from the others due to Deidara's explosions. He was able to recover quickly, landing on the ground feet first, and had only some dirt on his clothes. However, before he could move forward to regroup with the others, multiple crows began to fly around him and he soon found himself face to face with a person he longed to see. Itachi, Sasuke said faintly as he looked at the man he once pledged to kill. Hello, little brother, Itachi said in a monotone voice. I wonder if your hatred has. Don't give me that hatred crap anymore, Sasuke roared, surprising Itachi a bit by his sudden show of emotion. However, the elder Uchiha hid it well, until he heard the next words come out of Sasuke's mouth. I know the truth about that night and why you killed our clan. Do you have any idea about how much you screwed up? The beginning battle between Konoha and the Akatsuki reinforcements went ignored by Naruto. Said person's head whipped around behind him, a look of surprise and worry on his face. Kasumi caught notice of this. Naruto-kun, is something wrong? She asked. Kasumi-sama, I need to ask you to head towards the island center and hurry, Naruto said before he recalled Uyoku and Seoku to cover his rear. Someone has breached Sadahiko Hijiji's seal. As Naruto began making his way towards his new destination, both Konoha and Akatsuki made their way to follow after their shared target, towards the new battlefield that was the island's center. Orochimaru's group. This is interesting, the Snake Sanin said as his group faced the obstacle before them. Orochimaru had intended to head towards where Sasuke Naruto would most likely be. But Jugo's words caught his interest and he decided to take a brief detour towards the island's center to see what the orange-haired young man was talking about. When they arrived, they came face to face with the largest wall any of them had ever seen before. It went above the tall trees on the island, gray and covered with vines and cracks all over it. Something left by the Uzumaki clan perhaps, Kabuto suggested. Probably, Orochimaru replied as he rubbed some of the vines off a part of the wall, taking a look at the unique designs on the wall mixed in with the Uzumaki clan's symbol. I'm curious to see what's on the other side, however, Orochimaru said as he began running up the wall, his feet infused with chakra so he could stick to the wall's surface. Kabuto, Karen and Jugo soon followed him, but none of them noticed a faint blue appeared on the symbols before they quickly disappeared. It took them a good 15 minutes before the group of four finally reached the top of the wall. What they saw astounded them. Even Orochimaru had a look of overwhelming shock for a moment, before it quickly reverted back into normal surprise. How? Karen murmured as she took in the sight before her. How is there a city on this island? True enough, before the four people, a large ruined city, with high towers and buildings made of material unknown stood before them. Much of the city had black letter words written all over them and black lines on the streets converging towards the center, where the image of a large dark purple dome could be seen from Orochimaru's group's view. Sadahiko's home. The elder Uzumaki was back in his workshop, surrounded by desks, shelves and various scrolls and papers while he was sitting on the floor cross-legged with a large sheet of paper before him and a large paintbrush in his hands. On the sheet of paper was something that looked akin to a family tree. At the top, inside a black circle, was the name Kagaya Otsutsuki. Under that name were two more names, connected by black lines. On the left was Hagoromo Otsutsuki and on the right was Hamura Otsutsuki. Underneath Hagoromo's name the black line split in two again, with two more names too. One was Indra with the Uchiha symbol under it, and Ashura, with the Senju symbol under that one. Like with Hagoromo under Hamura's name there were also two black lines each one connecting to a name. One name was Ganesha with the Uzumaki symbol under that name and the other was Surya with the Hyuga symbol under it. From the four names the black lines kept increasing as they connected to more and more names. White people thought that Ganesha, the Uzumaki founder, was the third child of Hagoromo and not his nephew. I'll never know. Sadahiko commented as he kept writing names. However, he paused suddenly when he felt something on his right arm. Pulling back his sleeve revealed a small circle with the kanji, alert, in it blinking blue rapidly. This caused Sadahiko to narrow his eyes before he put the paintbrush down. Getting up swiftly, Sadahiko raised his left arm up and extended his fingers to open. Once he did, a wooden staff with a round top flew from the side and into Sadahiko's waiting hand. Gripping the staff, Sadahiko turned around and made to leave his home. That idiot, I told him to make sure none of them got to the barrier. Sadahiko mumbled as he opened his front door. Well, it's been a while but I guess I better get into the game. Sadahiko added before he took off from the ground, heading towards the battlefield. Young Sadahiko Uzumaki landed on the ground gracefully, still gripping his weapon. He had tan skin, purple eyes and long spiky red hair that reached his waist and was tied into a ponytail with a bang on both sides of his face. In a way he looked like Naruto without the whisker marks and blue eyes. He wore dark blue pants, black gloves, sandals, white bandages around his forelegs under his knees, and a long-sleeved black hooded coat ending at his knees, and over that he wore the usual shinobi armor plates worn back then. His armor was red and consisted of plates that covered his shoulders, chest, back, thighs, the sides and back of his neck and waist, while also covering his forearms with his coat's hood sticking out of the armor. Tied around his back was a large scroll that was next to his rear, while in his right hand was a double-edged, dark red broadsword with a black cross guard and a two-handed round gray handle with a gray ring at the bottom of it. Near the top of the blade was a round hollow part too with the Uzumaki symbol below it, followed by a series of black lines going all over the blade. Opposite of him was another man, around Sadahiko's height. This person's appearance was different from the Uzumaki's. His skin was paler, he had long dark blue hair that reached his lower back and bright yellow eyes too. And while he wore dark pants, bandages around his forelegs and black sandals, this man only wore a long-sleeve black shirt that ended at his waist instead of his knees like Sadahiko's. Over that he wore the usual armor that shinobi of that time wore, consisting of plates that covered his chest, neck, back, shoulders, waist, thighs and forearms. However, draped over the armor was an ankle-length tattered black cloak held by a single large silver button at his chest. As it moved against the wind it almost looked like the cloak was glimmering, reflecting the light of the moon. Finally, the man held dual scythes, one in each hand that had sharp and curved blades ending at a demonic face with black handles that had chains at the bottom of them connecting to the man's forearm guards. Both men were standing facing one another within a wide cavern devoid of trees and grass, just a barren wasteland. The blue-hair man made the first move, spreading his arms and in extension his scythes out wide. He then swung them forward, firing two bolts of lightning that appeared out of nowhere straight towards Sadahiko. In response, Sadahiko sent chakra into his broadsword and with a single swing deflected the lightning bolts easily. The two projectiles flew towards the far left and a small explosion formed afterwards when they made contact with the ground. Sadahiko decided to follow it up. Strapping his sword to his back, Sadahiko formed hand seals. Onmyoten. Yajirishi Sanzai no Jutsu, Yin-Yang Release, Scattered Arrows Technique. Hundreds of small blue arrows appeared in the air around Sadahiko before launching themselves towards the blue hair man. But the onslaught did not make him waver as he swiftly used his dual scythes to deflect some of the arrows while dodging the others. While his opponent was distracted, Sadahiko formed another set of hand seals. Onmyoten. Jasho Mashu no Jutsu, Yin-Yang Release, Rising Demon Hands Technique. Several large pale hands shot up from the ground around the blue hair man, ready to grab him. But instead the man did a spin and released an arc of wind, cutting the hands in half. As the large hands fell to the ground, the man looked at Sadahiko with a smirk. "You'll have to do better than that, Sadahiko, if you want to kill me," the man said as he jumped backwards. Strapping his scythes to his back, the man raised both his hands forward. A seal appeared in front of them and fired a barrage of energy balls at Sadahiko. The same could be said to Hachiro. Sadahiko yelled in response as he dodged the balls of fire, ignoring the explosions they made as they hit the ground behind him. "Something like that isn't enough to kill me. Then let us try a different tactic," the person now identified as Hachiro replied as he clapped his hands above his head before bringing them down. Sadahiko looked up to the sky and was shocked to see a large ball of natural energy in the form of a green orb. It then took on the form of a large ball of magma falling from the sky straight towards him. "Shit," Sadahiko thought while rearing back both his hands. Soon yellow chakra began to form around his fists as he yelled, "Hado, Benkoken, wave motion, 10,000 fists." Sadahiko then unleashed a barrage of punches upwards. Each punch released hand-sized golden spheres of chakra that struck the ball of magma repeatedly. Slowly the punches began breaking apart the magma so that chunks of it flew everywhere, causing explosions and craters to form around the two combatants, with flames helping change the landscape permanently. Sadahiko had just finished when his senses went up, causing him to pull out his broadsword just in time to stop Hachiro's scythes. The Kishin used Sadahiko's attention on the magma as a distraction to get close to the Uzumaki. But obviously the surprise attack had failed. "I see your senses have not dulled since the last time we fought, Sadahiko," Hachiro said to his rival with a sadistic grin. Sadahiko glared at Hachiro before pushing the blue-haired man back with his sword. Sadahiko made to move but felt something around his left ankle. Looking down, the Uzumaki was surprised to see a tree branch binding his leg. "Would," Sadahiko wondered. "Yes, now die at the hands of 1,000 bladed branches," Hachiro declared as he formed several hand motions. Soon multiple large wood branches shot out of the ground, all of them converging towards Sadahiko. The sharp ends on the branches left no reason to doubt they would definitely skewer Sadahiko. "This is almost like Hashirama's Mokuten," Sadahiko thought as he quickly shot out dozens of chakra chains from his back. The spear-tipped chains clashed with the sharp-pointed branches, with the former eventually winning. Hachiro cursed as he watched this while Sadahiko freed his leg from its bind. Now free, Sadahiko formed a one-handed seal with his left hand before tapping the side of his scroll strapped to his shoulders. Upon doing so, several weapons poof in the air above Sadahiko while his chakra chains shot towards them. Then the spear tips at the end morphed into clawed hands, each one made for grabbing a weapon. Now armed, the chains shot towards Hachiro, engaging him in combat while the Kishin defended himself with his scythes. After a while, Hachiro finally managed to get free from the onslaught of attacks by merging his scythes into a single large scythe. This one was similar to the two smaller ones except had a bigger and longer blade, handle and what looked like a smaller curved blade with a red gem attached to the larger blade, facing the opposite direction. With incredible skill, Hachiro formed several fast swings with his scythe, slicing the chains in half and forcing Sadahiko to recall them back. As the chains receded back into Sadahiko, the Uzumaki saw something that made his eyes widen. Forming above Hachiro were 3 black orbs. A variation of the Kishin clan's signature technique. One that's appearance and power level is compared to a Biju's tail beast bomb. Makyu Demon Sphere, Sadahiko thought when he figured out that the 3 orbs were compressed natural energy. Makyu Sanenkyu Demon Sphere, 3 dark spheres. Hachiro cried as he launched the 3 black orbs towards Sadahiko. The orbs began spinning around in a circle as they drew closer to their target. However, Sadahiko did not waver at this attack but instead formed the ram seal again. Onmyoten Enkido no Jutsu Yin-Yang Release, Circular Orbit Technique. He yelled as a large black sphere surrounded by 5 smaller spheres appeared before him and the 3 black orbs. The 5 smaller white spheres soon began to rotate around the large black one faster and faster, and just as Hachiro's attack was about to hit, Sadahiko's technique formed into a large black and white vortex that within seconds obliterated everything within a mile radius, filling the sky with smoke. The 3 black orbs also exploded and increased the radius of the explosion even more. As the smoke began to clear, Hachiro's voice could be heard. To think you would only need to use Onmyoten, Saiji, Santechu no Jutsu Yin-Yang Release, Sacred Rites, 3 Iron Pillars technique to protect yourself from such an explosion, just what I expect from you, Sadahiko. Hachiro said. As the dust finally cleared, it revealed that the battlefield as well as the surrounding area of about 2.5 miles, had been reduced to nothing more than a giant smoldering crater. Sadahiko was perfectly unharmed, and it was thanks to 3 square-shaped iron pillars around him in a triangle formation. The pillars were connected thanks to reflective walls that were emitting chakra and had protected Sadahiko from the explosion. However, the Uzumaki's attention was focused on his opponent and what he was standing on, to be exact. The creature was large, almost as large as the Kyuubi, and looked like a giant ape, what with its stubby legs and long arms reaching the ground. However, it had no hands but instead large hook blades at the ends of its arms. The top part of its body was just dark blue skin, while the bottom part was black fur, while going down his spine was a line of purple spikes, while a pair of large curled white horns were coming out of his back. On its face it had multiple smaller horns and what appeared to be a second black-colored lower jaw over the first one, and finally had yellow sclera and black slit pupils. Standing directly on top of its head was none other than Hachiro. He summoned a Majuk demon beast to protect himself from the explosion. Sadahiko thought as he stared at the creature before him. To the Maju, the Uzumaki was nothing more than an ant. It growled and hissed as it stood before Sadahiko. Now then, Sadahiko, let's see what you can do in this situation. Hachiro yelled as the Maju raised its right arm, preparing to bring it down on Sadahiko. Sadahiko, however, clapped his hands. I'll do what I always told Hashirama and Madara to do, improvise. Onmyoten, Yamashiro no Jutsu Yin-Yang Release, Mountain Fortress Technique. He cried as he formed the ram seal. Suddenly several mountains with numerous caves, tunnels, bridges and walls on them, began to rise all around the Maju, completely cutting its view of Sadahiko off as well as its mobility. Hachiro cursed as he watched this all happen from his view on top of the Maju. Now where did he go? Hachiro muttered as he looked around from atop his summon. His attention was brought above when felt a spike of chakra. Looking up, Hachiro saw Sadahiko in mid-air performing a set of hand seals. Did you think you could attack in such an open area? Hachiro asked mockingly as he began sending energy to the Maju's body. Said creature raised its head at Sadahiko and began forming a Makyu demon sphere from its mouth. Onmyoten, Yahashira Koken no Jutsu Yin-Yang Release, 8-Pillar Light Ring Technique. Sadahiko's voice said from somewhere else. Suddenly a yellow ring with 8 points appeared around the Maju, binding it in place and stopping its Makyu. Hachiro seemed surprised and confused, but that confusion cleared when he saw a second Sadahiko standing from the entrance of one of the caves. If that's the real Sadahiko, then that means the other one is a Onmyoten Bushin yin-yang clone. Hachiro thought as he looked back up at the first Sadahiko in the air that had just finished forming seals. Holding out its right arm, hand open, the clone yelled, "Onmyoten, Krioraiho no Jutsu yin-yang release, Sky Dragon Thunder Cannon technique." The clone then fired a large beam of blue energy from its palm with lightning cackling around it. The beam instantly hit Hachiro as well as the Maju's head, causing the latter to explode in a shower of blood and flesh while the rest of the corpse disappeared in a large poof of smoke. Sadahiko stood at the edge of the mountain while his clone disappeared above him, fading away into thin air. "Did I get him?" Sadahiko mumbled to himself as he looked over the small valley of mountains he created. No, there's no way Hachiro could have been done in by something like that. Just as he finished his sentence, Sadahiko spun around and brought up his broadsword, just in time to stop Hachiro's dual scythes from ripping through him. The Kishin didn't look the least bit injured or phased from Sadahiko's last attack. Sadahiko grunted as Hachiro tried to overpower him, but eventually the Uzumaki managed to push his opponent back, causing him to skid across the ground. Not giving Hachiro a chance to recover, Sadahiko began sending chakra into his broadsword, causing the black lines to glow blue, followed by the hollow hole at the top of the blade. Egeshio, Mikazuki Economy, Rising Tide, Crescent Moon, Red Wave. Sadahiko roared as he swung his blade downwards. The broadsword then released a wave of large red crescent-shaped blades from it, all of them flying towards Hachiro. Raagh. Hachiro roared as he quickly formed a wall of energy. The blades hit the wall head-on, causing said wall to break apart in multiple chunks of energy shards. However, Hachiro wasn't done yet as the shards reformed into multiple spears before being launched at Sadahiko. The Uzumaki, however, was not intimidated by this but instead infused more chakra into his blade and released a single powerful wave of chakra that dispersed the barrages, sending them crashing on either side of him. Sadahiko saw Hachiro diving towards him and the two once again engaged in weapon combat. But this time they added chakra to their weapons, causing waves of chakra to spark off every time their weapons met. When that happened, large chunks of land would be shattered and tossed into the wind like rag dolls. The very ground beneath them began to crack and shudder under their ferocious duel. After a time, Hachiro and Sadahiko jumped away from one another, both of them not looking the least bit tired or even wounded. However, it was clear that Hachiro was getting annoyed of how long it was taking from the looking of irritation on his face. "I'm going to finish this now, with one of my most powerful Maju," Hachiro declared as he slammed both his hands on the ground, causing a large poof of smoke to appear before Sadahiko. Said person clasped both his hands together in response, quickly gathering natural energy around him. A minute or two later the smoke disappeared, revealing Hachiro standing on top of another monster, this one larger than the last, almost the same size as the Kyuubi. It looked like a centaur, but instead of a man crossed with a horse, it was a man crossed with a lion. The bottom half was that of a lion's body, having brown fur and a long tail. However, the top part was more human-like, except it also had brown fur along with a demonic lion face with red eyes, a dark yellow mane, 2 pairs of arms and claws too. Covering its body was a set of gray glowing armor covering the legs, knees, back, arms, elbows, shoulders, chest, waist and thighs. The Maju let out a loud roar that sent nearby trees out of the ground and flying backwards, though Sadahiko stood his ground. Sadahiko stared at the large creature and Hachiro for a moment before letting out a sigh. Strapping his blade to his back again, the Uzumaki clasped both his hands together. "Forgive me, Imoto," he mumbled under his breath, his thoughts going to his little sister. But I have to end Hachiro's life here and now. Suddenly chakra began to surround Sadahiko's body, taking the form of a yellow pillar with him in the epicenter. Black markings began to cover his face as his once purple eyes turned into a silver white with his white sclera becoming pitch black. Senpo. Onmyoten, Tenjin Shingai. Sage Art. Yin Yang Release. Heaven Blade Divine Armor. The yellow pillar quickly took the shape of a large sphere that soon dispersed, revealing a figure of titanic proportions, dwarfing the Maju before it and even the mountains around it. The figure was human in shape but slightly different. It wore golden armor underneath a white cloak that revealed its feet and hands but had golden shoulder plates above the cloak. The head was covered by a sun-shaped disc helmet and mask while wearing a necklace with 5 beads on it, each one having a kanji for the main chakra natures. The most noticeable feature was that attached to its back was a large pair of wings with golden trims and silver almost blade-like feathers too. Standing on top of the figure's head was Sadahiko staring down at Hachiro. "Here I come, Hachiro," Sadahiko shouted towards the Kishin, hands still clasped. Soon the golden figure began moving forward, straight towards the Maju, knocking down trees and leaving large craters in the ground. The wings on its back began to open up, spreading out as if ready to take flight. As it did so, it released a gust of wind that even blew more trees and earth away. However, Sadahiko stayed where he was, feet firmly planted on top of the figure's head. "Bring it on, Sadahiko," Hachiro roared back, taking a stance on his summon. The Maju let out another ferocious roar before charging forward, all 4 arms raised and claws ready to rip apart its master's foes. The ground beneath its feet shook as earth was uplifted and trees were trampled. The 2 large combatants and their masters charged each other with great force matched by equal determination as both Sadahiko and Hachiro intended to end everything there and then. Present time, Island of the War Gods. Ino and Shizune were busy healing Shikamaru. Choji and Neji, while surrounding them in a protective position, were Aruka, Asuma, Shino and Hinata. When the group had been scattered, Asuma had taken command of that group and decided that staying put was the better choice since most of them were too injured or incapacitated to move yet. Fortunately, Shino's bugs and Hinata's Byakugan were very helpful in at least keeping them informed about the current circumstances of the rest of their comrades as well as that of the enemy. "How's it going, Shizune?" Asuma asked as he looked at the senior medic Nin. "Well, so far nothing permanent has been done to them," Shizune replied as she continued healing Choji while Ino was focused on Neji. Shikamaru had the less serious injuries. Apparently the electricity that Naruto-kun hit him with only knocked Shikamaru out and numbed him a bit. "I've removed any numbness from his body, but he'll still be out for a while," she explained as she looked at Choji. Choji and Neji, however, have multiple cuts on their bodies from that wind technique. While nothing fatal, a lot of their nerves have been cut, meaning it would be impossible for them to move. Those techniques of Naruto-kun are very effective, and if they had moved a second back too late, then they would have been a lot worse off. A few of the Kikachu that Shino had sent earlier were now returning. As they landed on his hand, Shino turned towards the others. "My comrades have informed me that the ones with Jiraiya-sama have engaged with Akatsuki, whom were fighting with Naruto-san. However, it appears that they are now moving towards the center of the island." "Why would they be going there?" Ino asked. "I don't know, but apparently Naruto-san had retreated on a large fox summon and headed towards the center, followed by the others," Shino replied. The sound of rustling leaves caught their attention and they got into battle stances. However, the Konoha nin quickly relaxed when Enko landed before them, carrying an unconscious guy on her shoulders. "Enko-sensei. Guy-sensei," Hinata exclaimed in surprise. "What the hell happened to you guys?" Asuma asked as he walked over and helped take Guy from Enko, whom was catching her breath since she was also a bit injured. Asuma placed Guy alongside Neji while Ino began running a diagnostic jutsu over the taijutsu master. Enko meanwhile sat down, leaning her back against a tree while Shizune looked over her. It was that green-skinned friend of the Gakis. He's a lot stronger than we led to believe and has an unusual body. He wasn't affected by my poison and even managed to get it out, and his body is very stretchable. Also, he managed to take on myself, Guy, Mini Guy and Pinky with ease without getting a scratch on him. Guy was knocked out and I got pretty banged up, so the other two volunteered to distract him while I brought Guy here. Enko explained. Asuma was about to ask her when something cut him off. Suddenly several crystals popped out of the ground around the group, instantly surrounding them and posed to pierce their flesh right away. While several of the Konoha shinobi were taken by surprise, Shizune, Hinata, Shino and Ino recognized the crystals, having once faced such things before 3 years ago. This is, Hinata stammered. A figure jumped before them on top of a tree branch. It was a young woman that had fair skin, wearing red lipstick, had dark eyes and light blue hair that was kept in a spiky ponytail with the exception of long hair framing her face. The outfit she wore consisted of a green dress with a long left sleeve and a short right one, a red turtleneck that has a white, fluffy color and brown gloves. Under those she wore a one-piece red suit as well as calf-length brown sandal boots. Looks like someone did a number on you guys. Gurren said mockingly. You're that Oto Kunoichi from the Sanbi mission 4 years ago. Shizune announced as she stood in front of the wounded. Why are you here? She demanded before a terrifying thought entered her head. Does this mean that Orochimaru is here? Gurren shrugged. Don't know, I'm no longer under that snake's rule anymore. She said, shocking the Konoha nin. However, my new companion is someone whom you're after and I can't allow that. I owe him a great debt. The Konoha nin's eyes widened at that. Basically what Gurren was saying was she was now with Naruto. But before they could think of their next, 2 more objects crashed into the ground before them, creating a pair of man-sized craters with dust flying into the air by the impact. A few seconds later the 2 objects revealed themselves to be Sakura and Lee, both bruised but still capable of moving as they got out of the craters. Damn, that bastard can hit hard, Sakura muttered as she rubbed her neck before placing her right hand on her right side, hands glowing green chakra. The impact had fractured a rib and the pink-haired Kunoichi was now healing it so she could get back into the fight. As she did that, a larger and muscular Yujin appeared, landing right beside Gurren. The impact caused the ground to shake a bit and form a small crater underneath his feet. Gurren raised an eyebrow at his form. I'm surprised that these brats forced you to go into that form, Yujin-san. The crystal user commented. Yujin's only response was to let out steam from his nose in annoyance. Gurren just sweat dropped at that. Must have said the G word. Gurren thought. Anyway, we need to leave and head towards the island's center. Yujin ordered as he returned into his original form. It appears that your old boss has arrived on this island and is threatening to reach the seal, something we can't allow. The Konoha shinobi's eyes widened at that. Orochimaru was here, on this island. Damn, this just made things complicated, Asuma cursed. With Gurren, said person's eyes widened for a second before narrowing. Got it, besides these guys won't be leaving any time soon with all the injured they have. She replied as she and Yujin took off. The Konoha nin just looked on, still taking in everything that has happened so far. Asuma was the first to react. Snap out of it, guys, this is no time to be in a daze. Sakura tend to Lee and then help Ino and Shizune patch up the others. Shizune summoned Kagaya-sama to let Hokage-sama know of what's happening. The Sarutobi ordered. What about the others? They need to know about this and that Orochimaru is here. Ino said to her sensei. In response, Asuma made a shadow clone. My clone will go and warn the others about this. Enko, you go too just in case so the others can get an idea about that Yujin guy's abilities. By the sound of it, he's a tough one. He heard Enko mumble, that's an understatement, before she took off with the clone. Asuma then looked at Shizune. How long will it take Hokage-sama to get here? Katsuya-sama is linked to all her parts, so it shouldn't take more than a second. Shizune replied as she prepared to summon the slug. And if she has the Hokage guard platoon at the ready, she should arrive in here in just a few minutes. Okay, do it, Asuma said as he looked at everyone else. The moment that my clone finishes telling the others and Shizune sends the message, we're heading out as well to support the rest of the team. Asuma ordered. Orochimaru's group. The group of 4 was walking casually through the large city, all of them staring at each structure in wonder, Orochimaru the most as he finally figured out how this city came to be. If my memory is correct, then this entire city is in fact one whole jutsu, Sadahiko's Haijutsu, Kojo Kochiku secret technique, construct of the ancient city. Orochimaru thought as he gazed at the black lines running across the ground and buildings. This jutsu is quite similar to the Shidaime Hokage's Jukai Koden nativity of a world of trees technique, but on a scale much greater than it. With this, Sadahiko was able to change the battlefield and use the structures to his advantage to completely send his enemies in disarray. He even used this technique to single-handedly destroy an entire army. I should expect no less of a prodigy who became head of his clan at the age of 15. But judging from the formation of the buildings, and these markings, Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto said, snapping the snake Sannin from his thoughts. From the look in the second-in-command's eyes, he was also thinking the same thing too. The way this city is built, and how the seals on the buildings are absorbing natural energy constantly. Yes, Orochimaru interrupted thoughtfully. This place was set up to act as a barrier to keep something sealed within. And since energy is still being absorbed, whatever that thing is still sealed here. The snake Sannin said. Perhaps it's in the center of the city. I really hate smart brats sometimes. A voice said from above in response to that. Orochimaru and his group looked upwards to see Sadahiko diving towards them, his right fist surrounded by a sphere of golden chakra. The group had managed to jump out of the way just as the ancient Uzumaki's fist made contact with the ground, the chakra sphere dispersing and creating a decent-sized crater. Kabuto quickly formed some hand seals. Sweeten, Mizoripa water release, violent water wave. And he fired a stream of powerful water towards Sadahiko. However, the older male didn't bat an eyelash as he simply thrust his right arm forward, releasing a pulse of chakra into the air towards the oncoming stream of water. When they met, the water was dispersed as the pulse of chakra rammed Kabuto, though it hit rubble instead thanks to the glasses-wearing shinobi having performed kawarimi to avoid the hit. Kabuto reappeared alongside his master with Jugo and Karen joining him. Orochimaru was, for the first time, quite shocked to see a legend such as Sadahiko Uzumaki standing before him alive and well. However, he quickly regained his composure before smirking. Well, this is quite a surprise. To think that the famed Akagami Red God was still alive, let alone able to move so easily. The snake Sannin said in his usual arrogant tone. Sadahiko just stared at them, taking note of Karen's red hair before commenting. Not really, I think I've gotten a bit slow over the past few years. I was a lot faster in my youth, he said as he flexed his fingers. He was able to get close to me before I could sense him, and he's not in his prime anymore either. Orochimaru thought as he heard those words. And his chakra levels are higher than Sarutobi when he was still young. I wanted to use my trump card against the Akatsuki members here and the Kyuubi brat. But I might have to use it earlier than I expected. Still calm, Orochimaru stared back at Sadahiko. I must question as to why you're here, Sadahiko. Despite the fact that this island was formed from your battle with Hachiro Kishin, I don't see any logic of living here, or the point of this city for that matter, and why it's kept in such good shape. Then the Sannin had a smirk form on his lips. Could it be perhaps that you're trying to keep something bound here, or maybe someone? Sadahiko's eyes narrowed as he walked out of the crater he made. He kept his gaze as he kept speaking, anticipating Sadahiko to get riled up by his next few words. Could it be that at the very center of this city is a seal of some sort? A seal that contains Hachiro Kishin? Orochimaru asked. That seemed to have done it. For the moment that those two words left Orochimaru's lips, Sadahiko was upon him, another chakra-enhanced fist already lunging forward. It smashed right into Orochimaru's face before sending the snake Sannin flying backwards several blocks. The man's flight finally ended when he crashed into a building and was unmoving. I really do hate smart aleck brats sometimes. Sadahiko repeated. The other three of Orochimaru's group were stunned for a few seconds, trying to absorb at what had just transpired. Kabuto was the first to recover, activating his chakra scalpels and charging towards Sadahiko. Jugo quickly joined him. His right arm became larger and more demonic while also turning into a grayish color. However, before either could even touch him, Sadahiko released a burst of chakra from his entire body, causing a shockwave that formed another crater underneath him while sending anything around him flying backwards, including Kabuto and Jugo. Karen, whom had sensed the change in flow of Sadahiko's chakra, was more fortunate. Having chose not to attack, she managed to jump back just as the elder Uzumaki created the shockwave. She still got hit by it but took less damage than her two companions and was able to land feet first afterwards. She looked on in shock as the older man had sent both Jugo and Kabuto flying with just his chakra alone. And then there was Orochimaru. Karen's musings were cut off when Sadahiko suddenly appeared before her. She had zero time to react when the elder Uzumaki tapped her gently on her neck, causing Karen's world to go black. "Don't worry," Sadahiko said softly as he caught the unconscious Karen with his arms. "I will not harm my own kin. But you," he continued as he turned around, looking at an empty street. "How long are you going to play dead using the Doden Cage Bunshin Earth Release Shadow clone?" Sadahiko asked. Phasing out of the ground before him was Orochimaru, unhurt minus a small bruise on his cheek. Courtesy of Sadahiko, whom had managed to hit the snake Sannin just as said man managed to switch himself with a clone. Cuckoo, I guess that spoils any ideas of a surprise attack. Orochimaru mused. Suddenly the ground nearby began to crack and a giant snake popped out of the ground. It towered over Sadahiko as it opened its mouth, preparing to devour the elder Uzumaki. However, before it could even get close, a large white seven-tailed fox pounced on the snake, sinking its teeth into the snake's body. The snake didn't stand a chance as Katsumi easily tore through it with her claws and teeth before tossing its corpse to the side just as it disappeared in a poof of smoke. Naruto quickly jumped off of Katsumi, landing beside Sadahiko as the younger Uzumaki glared at Orochimaru, who had just been joined by Kabuto and Jugo. "You let 4 of them in, you brat." Sadahiko mumbled to Naruto. My bad, Naruto replied with a groan. "I was preoccupied by some of the other invaders. Besides, I didn't think anyone would get here so quickly." That's when Naruto noticed the unconscious Karen on the ground behind them. "Who's that?" "Don't know, but she's definitely Uzumaki." Sadahiko replied. "Have a clone take her back to where Kiko-chan is so we can finish things here." "Got it," Naruto replied as he quickly made a shadow clone. The clone picked up Karen and using Mikado, teleported away from the battlefield while the original and Sadahiko faced off against Orochimaru with Katsumi standing behind them. However, before they could even get started, most of the members of the Konoha group as well as the Akatsuki group arrived. However, it appeared that Sasuke and Itachi were absent. Oh great, now more of them got inside the barrier. "Nice work, you brat," Sadahiko yelled at his great-grandson. "I said I was sorry, damn it," Naruto shouted back. Meanwhile, the newcomers took in what they saw. While most of them, the younger Konoha shinobi to be precise, were surprised to see Orochimaru here, everyone's focus was on the older redhead standing beside Naruto. Some were confused, wondering who he was, while a few, mainly Jiraiya, Pain, Conan and Toby, were shocked and a bit worried. "No way is that," Jiraiya murmured in astonishment. "How you know this guy Jiraiya-sama?" Tenten asked. "Not personally, he's the one I told you about. Sadahiko Uzumaki, the strongest Uzumaki in history and the first person to bear the Onmyoten Kekkei Genkei," Jiraiya revealed. "What?" Kiba yelled out in shock, a feeling shared by the others. "As in the guy who made this place. How the hell is he still alive? He should be over 100 years old by now." "So that is Mother's father, my grandfather," Nagato commented in his head as he looked at Sadahiko through the eyes of his diva path. Toby was likewise shocked as he stared at the living legend. He knew that if Sadahiko got involved then this would put a serious dent in his plans. "Still there might be a chance we can take him out or better yet grab the Jinchuriki before Sadahiko realizes it," Toby thought. "So what do we do now?" Naruto asked out loud while looking at Sadahiko. "We got the snake with 2 of his goons, at least 5 of those Akatsuki bastards and all those from Konoha. How should we go with this Hijiji? Isn't it obvious?" Sadahiko replied, cracking his knuckles. "We do this the good old Uzumaki way." Kick there finished as he flared his chakra, creating a gust of wind that hit everyone in the face. Feeling the wave of chakra, Orochimaru acted quickly, clapping his hands together. Kuchio's no jutsu, Edo Tensai. Summoning technique. Impure world resurrection, and was followed by 5 coffins popping out of the ground in front of the snake Sanin. "That technique," Kakashi exclaimed as he saw the coffins. "Wait, Orochimaru's hands should be sealed by Sarutobi-sensei. How the hell can he use them?" Jiraiya said. "He must have used the mask from the old Uzumaki temple," Sadahiko muttered when he saw this. "Maybe I should have taken it with me," Naruto mumbled to himself as the coffin lids began to slowly open. "No helping it now, at least we won't be the only people who have to deal with them," Sadahiko said as he gripped his staff. "Be ready." The lids fell on the ground, revealing the contents of the coffins. Walking out of the first 4 in order were the Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze, the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Nadaime Hokage, Tobirama Senju and the Shadaime Hokage, Hashirama Senju. And from the 5th content was Madara Uchiha. Conan exclaimed in shock when she saw the reincarnated legendary Uchiha figure. She spun around to face Toby but saw that the masked Akatsuki member had vanished. "What the hell is going on?" Conan muttered. "Madara!" Kurama roared at seeing the Uchiha that controlled him all those years ago. Naruto could feel the Biju's rage for Madara but kept his composure. "God damn him!" Jiraiya cursed his old teammate upon seeing Orochimaru revive Hiruzen and Minato, his mentor and student respectively. The Toad Sage knew that if Tsunade were here then she would have most likely murdered the snake Sanin for bringing back her relatives too. But what really made Jiraiya nervous was that Madara was one of the 5 to be resurrected. But how was that possible? Jiraiya was sure that the one responsible for the Kyuubi attack 19 years ago was Madara Uchiha. So if the real Madara had been dead all this time, then who was responsible for it? Despite all the questions running through his head, Jiraiya knew he had to stay focused at the task of hand. Back with resurrected dead, said people were starting to notice their surroundings, plus the fact that they were amongst the living. Where are we?" Hashirama asked out loud. "It seems that we've been revived through the use of Edo Tensai." His brother Tobirama muttered as he crossed his arms, a habit he developed at a young age. "But how can this be? Our souls were trapped in the Shinigami's stomach, meaning no one could gain access to our souls," Hiruzen said before noticing his deceased successor. "Minato!" the third exclaimed. "Hiruzen, it's been a while," Minato said to his predecessor. "As for your question, my guess is that someone broke the seal for the Shiki Fujin dead demon consuming seal." "Oh, it's Saru!" Hashirama exclaimed when he saw the Sandaime Hokage. It's been a while Saru, who's this? The Shadaime asked upon seeing Minato. Tobirama was also curious but merely raised an eyebrow. Oh me. I'm the Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Minato introduced himself. Wow, really? Hashirama said with excitement. So the village has been doing well then huh? TCH, you haven't changed at all Hashirama. A fifth voice said from the Shadaime's right. Turning around, the four past Hokages saw that it was Madara who spoke. Can't you tell that this man is dead like the rest of us? Madara. Tobirama exclaimed in shock as Hiruzen and Minato took up fighting stances. Only Hashirama remained unfazed and relaxed at the sight of his old rival. Kukuku, as interesting as this is, I did not summon you five to merely converse amongst yourselves. Orochimaru said, catching the five figures' attention. Orochimaru. Hiruzen shouted at the sight of his former pupil. The brat who summoned us the first time around huh? Tobirama said as he narrowed his eyes at the snake Sanin. I sealed your hands into the Shinigami, denying you to ever use them for jutsus. How did you regain them? Hiruzen demanded when he saw Orochimaru's now perfectly healthy hands. Most likely he used the Shinigami mask to invoke the Shiki Fujin, Kite Dead Demon Consuming Seal, released to free your souls and his hands from the Shinigami's stomach. Sadahiko said, finally speaking. At that everyone's eyes turned towards the elder Uzumaki. The Hokages and Madara being surprised of seeing the most powerful Uzumaki alive before them. The redhead had a look of aggravation on his face due to so many people coming to his island uninvited. Sadahiko-sensei. Hashirama said in shock at the sight of his former mentor and brother-in-law. Just what the hell is going on here? Tobirama said as he tried to figure out why Sadahiko was here and still alive. That's Sadahiko-sama, Hiruzen asked as he recalled only seeing the Uzumaki when he was younger. However, even back then it was very rare as Sadahiko barely visited unless it was to see his sister. So he really was alive all this time. Madara muttered as he gazed at the redhead. In his mind he was also wondering why he was revived in this state, trying to locate Obito or Zetsu. But Orochimaru's seal over him made it difficult to do so. That's Kushina-chan's grandfather, Minato said in his head as he recalled the stories his wife had told him about Sadahiko. It was then he noticed the younger redhead man beside Sadahiko. It took the Yondaime a good 2 minutes but he eventually put it together. Naruto. Minato yelled in shock of his son, at both how much he had grown and his new appearance. It was then he noticed the people of Akatsuki and Konoha, including his sensei, Jiraiya. Naruto-kun, Hiruzen said when he looked at the young Uzumaki. Sure enough, it really was his surrogate grandson, though older now and a new hair color. What on earth is going on here? He asked as he saw the gathered people. Hello Namikaze, hello Sarutobi. You two are looking good for dead people. Naruto said emotionlessly. Ignoring the tone Naruto gave him, Minato focused on Naruto's appearance. Why is your hair red? Minato asked since it looked similar to Kushina's hair color. Naruto rolled his eyes in annoyance. Well, I figure it would be a good way to honor my clan, my mother's clan. That, and not only would it get rid of the last thing that resembles me to you, but also so that way Konoha wouldn't be able to find me. It worked for the past 6 years but not anymore, he said in aggravation. That confused all 4 Hokages and piqued Madara's interest as he could tell that this boy was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Boy, what do you mean to hide from Konoha? Are you not the village's Jinchuriki? Tobirama asked. His answer was the top part of his body being blown off from a blast of chakra, done by Sadahiko. Everyone watched in shock at the action. While Tobirama's body reformed, the elder Uzumaki said, what he means, idiot, is that along with making my great-grandson's life miserable for the first 13 years of his life, they banished him 6 years ago just because he was merely doing his duty. Then he glared at Minato and Hiruzen. Oh, and great job you two. for announcing his status to the public just after so many lives were lost, along with choosing the worthless toad over there as a godfather. Bravo, you guys really are the 4 Daibaka great fools. Sadahiko exclaimed as he pointed at a meek Jiraiya. What do you mean by that, Sadahiko Dono? Hiruzen asked, puzzled as to why all 4 of them were being insulted. Everyone else had gone silent. They were listening to the conversation between these powerful figures with slight interest. Isn't it obvious? Each one of you screwed up so bad that it affected the entire world and you lot don't even see it. Sadahiko replied. What? But Sadahiko-sensei, Hashirama tried to say but was cut off. Be quiet, little sapling, Sadahiko said swiftly. Oh my god. Hashirama cried out in despair before getting on his hands and knees with a depressed aura hanging over him, his entire body turning pale white. Everyone minus Tobirama, Madara, Sadahiko and Naruto sweat dropped at this. To think he would openly speak out against Sadahiko Dono, Tobirama thought as he looked at the depressed form of his older brother. Iniki, you were careless. With that done, Sadahiko pointed towards at Minato. You were by far the worst, second only to Hashirama. You sealed the Kyuubi into your own son. And left him with no one to care for him, except for that worthless toad sage whom seemed more focus on his stupid third-rate porno books and that idiot former teammate of his. You also had the idiocy to wish for that dumb village to know of your son's status just after so many lives were lost. I know I'm not the best when it comes to family, but I think I did hell of a lot better than you did. Before Minato could reply, Sadahiko turned his attention towards Hiruzen. You monkey boy are even worse. You went along with your idiot successor's wish and practically made Naruto hated by the entire village. And don't even make me list off all your other failures. Hiruzen lowered his head in disgrace, knowing the truth of Sadahiko's words. And you're the primary reason why things are such as mess, Tobirama. Sadahiko shouted at the Nadaime Hokage, said man finally finished reforming. You practically announced the Uchiha clan as untrustworthy to the entire world, and because of that they finally snapped and were wiped out, just because of Konoha higher-ups' fears. What? Tobirama muttered, but Sadahiko finally turned his glare towards Hashirama, and that's when the killing intent began to leak out. And you're the worst out of all them. I told you to bind the Kyuubi long enough to transport him and the other Biju where they wouldn't cause any harms to humans and vice versa. But not only did you not listen to me, but you also sealed him into Mito Nichan. Your own wife and my sister. I had no say in that, Sadahiko-sensei. Mito-chan did that of her own accord. Hashirama shouted. And I couldn't follow your idea. The Biju were too dangerous to be let loose, too much of a threat to the villages. They would have killed us all if left alone. And we would have deserved it. Sadahiko shouted back, surprising everyone minus Naruto. People's chakras are affected by our emotions, you damn idiot. The darker the emotion, the darker the chakra, and the Biju are no different. After 1,000 years of being feared, hated, hunted by humans simply because of their appearance, it was only natural that they would hold such hatred towards us. And you also had the nerve to capture them like pets and hand them out to the other villages like slaves, you damn hypocrite. At least Madara is honest enough to admit what he truly thinks, unlike you Hashirama, who hides behind lies of nobility and just cause. I no longer see you as my family. Sadahiko yelled, releasing a powerful gust of chakra that nearly blew everyone away. There was a moment of silence after that, everyone taking it all in. Sadahiko had let out a loud and emotional rant that left the accused rather too stunned to speak. Orochimaru was taking this all in with great interest. Never did he expect for Sadahiko to hold the Hokages in such contempt, and judging by Naruto's facial appearance, he felt the same way. The Hokages all seemed to have looks of shame and disappointment in themselves, letting Sadahiko's words finally dig in. Hashirama felt the worst. To be denounced by someone whom you admired was worse than any physical pain there was. Hell, even Madara couldn't help but pity the four despite their differences. After a few moments of silence, a grief-stricken Minato raised his head and looked at his son. Naruto had nothing in contempt in his eyes for the Yondaime Hokage. Son, Minato tried to say but was cut off. Save it Namikaze, Naruto said, saying the last word like something disgusting, making Minato flinch. I have nothing to say to you. Like Sadahiko Hijiji, I don't recognize you as family, just a bastard who supplied the sperm. Hell, you couldn't provide me a decent adult to look after me, just that perverted toad of a sensei of yours, who was more interested in his worthless smut and that snake of a former teammate of his. My only parent is my mother, and my only family is my clan, not you. Words are no longer necessary. Minato lowered his head again in shame at his son's words. He truly was a pathetic excuse for a father, and nothing he said would change that. Hell, he was pretty sure that if Kushina were here, she would beat the living crap out of him along with Jiraiya, Kakashi and anyone else who caused Naruto pain. I agree with you there, Naruto. Sadahiko said as he raised his staff. The time for talk is over. And then the staff shed itself and revealed a katana. The katana had a black and white striped handle with a round golden tsuba and gray sheath and red dots on it. The four past Hokages and Madara's eyes widened when they recognized the sword. Almost immediately Madara activated his complete Susanoo, including the lower part and legs, and charged towards Sadahiko. Madara! Hashirama yelled out. However, before the Uchiha could reach Sadahiko, a red blade struck his Susanoo right in the center. Despite the difference in size, the blade's tip was able to completely crack through the ethereal construct and hit Madara right in the chest, sending him flying back. Everyone followed the blade's direction and saw that it came from Naruto's sword. The Sekirei, Tobirama said, recognizing the legendary sword. That's amazing, Tenten said as she stared at the blade in awe. Some of the Konoha shinobi sweat dropped at her admiration at a bad timing. That's not the only sword you should be concerned about, Sadahiko said as he gripped his sword's handle. As he did, an incredible force of chakra began to pour out from the sword, hitting the area in waves and nearly suffocating the others. What is this? Kakashi muttered as he felt the chakra literally hitting his body. It was like nothing he ever felt before. Madara was right to try and attack Sadahiko straight away. Tobirama commented as he looked in between from the crater Madara's body had formed and back to the sword in Sadahiko's hands. That's the first weapon forged from chakra metal. A sword that summons forth the very force of nature and can manipulate all 5 main chakra natures. It was the weapon wielded by Hamura Otsutsuki, the brother of the Raikudo Sennin. Finally, Sadahiko had fully pulled out the sword from its sheath. Its blade was pure silver, as if the blood of war never tainted it. Suddenly, silver-colored chakra began to pour out from the blade before shifting from red, green, yellow, brown, blue and back to red before doing the whole cycle again. Sadahiko swung the sword around in a circular motion, and as he did so, the area around him was affected. The ground beneath him and Naruto began to shake as earth was uplifted. Flames spewed forth, covering everything around it, excluding the people. Small rain showers poured over the area. Lightning began sparkle from the blade and strike random places in the ground, and small windstorms radiated off from the sword. Everyone minus Naruto and Sadahiko were taken aback by the sword's power, while some managed to hide theirs with stoic facial looks. It was as if the forces of nature had been called by the blade and were heeding it. Forces of nature, come to me and raise all obstacles to nothingness, Sadahiko murmured as he pointed the sword forward. Raijin Jinryu. Spirit Blade Divine Flow. So friends, this was episode 3 of this emotional and dramatic story. If you enjoyed it and want the next episode soon, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also comment down your thoughts. Do you think Naruto is truly gone forever, or is there still a chance that Konoha will see him again someday? I'll see you in the next episode.